Warrior Lore. Chapter 702. I've heard that beasts can fuse with weapons to increase their power, but I've never heard of a talisman master capable of that. I didn't expect Du Xiaofu to know such a method. Such a method is extraordinary. I've heard that Senior Venerable Weapon was able to use such a method. It's a pity that such a method disappeared after Senior Venerable Weapon. I didn't expect Du Xiaofu to have such a method. When the elders and protectors on the high platform saw Du Xiaofu's actions, their eyes began to tremble. Suddenly, Elder Huang Yirong looked at the sky. No one knew what she saw, but her charming body suddenly trembled as she stood up. The light in her eyes began to change. All the elders and protectors seemed to have sensed something as well. They raised their heads and looked at the sky. Then, they stood up trembling in shock. Boom! Under everyone's watchful eyes, the dark clouds above the Tianwu Square condensed into a huge ball of dark clouds. The aura of the ball of dark clouds was strange and terrifying. It caused the sky to tremble inexplicably. A silent pressure spread out, causing all the living beings present to tremble in fear. The ball of dark clouds floated low in the sky like a small star. Thunder rumbled as strange black runes spread out. One-star tribulation lightning. He's refined a rudimentary Dao artifact. A rudimentary Dao artifact. A true Dao artifact. He's a 6-star arcane artifact. He's a monster among the weapon talisman masters. Is our ancient heaven sect going to have a weapon talisman grandmaster? As the dazzling ball of dark clouds condensed, all the Manchu elders and protectors on the high platform trembled. Under their nervous and expectant gazes, ripples of shock could be seen in their eyes. Chao Zhao, Guzong, and Mi Zixa's gazes also fluctuated. Good boy, you're going to make Master proud again. On the high platform, Yuanli's eyes trembled. Then, a smile appeared on his face. Walala! As Du Xiaofu's hands formed strange hand seals, the golden-winged rock's shadow turned into talisman runes. It was gradually suppressed and engraved on the spear. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Du Xiaofu at this moment. That gigantic ball of black lightning collapsed behind Du Xiaofu. Silver snakes wreaked havoc in the sky as the pressure spread out, causing people to feel an intense uneasiness in their hearts. The terrifying might of thunder surged and permeated this part of the sky. Martial Uncle Du has attracted a 1-star thunder tribulation. He has forged a true Dao artifact. Martial Uncle Du is clearly stronger than Senior Brother Guzong in terms of a true Dao artifact. Many disciples among the spectating disciples couldn't help but tremble. President, leader, hold on. In the World Society, Wang Mingqiao, Gu Zhongyu, and the others clenched their fists, their hearts in their throats. Is thunder lightning of World 1? Brat, you have to resist. Don't fail. Looking up at the huge ball of black lightning, many elders clenched their fists and sucked in a breath of cold air for Du Xiaofu. Rumble. Everyone's gazes trembled as dark clouds churned at the edge of the dark light lightning ball. Numerous silver snake lightning rippled. The lightning might that spread caused all the hairs on one's body to suddenly stand. Boom! Accompanied by a flash of lightning, that huge thunderbolt trembled, before finally piercing through space, loudly landing on Du Xiaofu's spiritual stove symbol cauldron. A 1-star thunder tribulation descended. Resisting the thunder tribulation, the Dao artifact was completed. If he couldn't withstand it, all his previous efforts would have been for naught, and the consequences would be unimaginable. If it was light, the weapon would be destroyed, and if it was heavy, it was possible that the person would die. Everything around the thunderbolt was annihilated in an instant. Just looking at it made one's hair stand on end. Chi La, in a short instant, wherever the thunderbolt passed, space distorted, revealing traces of a vacuum. The power of the thunder tribulation that spread down made everyone's head feel like it was about to explode. Their minds and souls trembled violently, and an indescribable sense of danger shrouded their hearts. At this moment, everyone calmed down, gazing at the sky. The whole square seemed to have frozen, falling into a strange silence. Only the thunderbolt resounded in the sky. Around the Sky Marshal Square, all the disciples raised their heads. Their scalps were numb, and their throats were rolling as they swallowed their saliva. A one-star thunder tribulation descended. Would Du Xiaofu really be able to resist it? Little junior brother, if he can resist it, Master will be happy when he returns. At this moment, Yu Wanli couldn't help but clench his fists, his heartbeat accelerating. Under everyone's nervous and complicated gazes, the thunderbolt directly bombarded the spear hovering on top of Du Xiaofu's spiritual stove symbol cauldron. A muffled thunder-like sound rang out, and on top of the spear, lightning wreaked havoc, dazzling the sky. Bang, bang, bang. At this moment, in the space around Du Xiaofu, the stone platforms of many medicine symbol masters and weapon symbol masters exploded one after another. The dazzling impact was extremely dazzling. Poochie, Du Xiaofu spat out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, he seemed to have suffered a huge impact. The blood and qi in his body surged, and was immediately wrapped up by the raging lightning. Afterwards, everything disappeared. The dark clouds in the sky gradually dispersed, and the thunder tribulation also gradually disappeared. A one-star thunder tribulation, only a single thunderbolt. Around the sky martial square, all the disciples held their breaths, nervously looking at the stone platform where Du Xiaofu had just been. As the lightning gradually dissipated, a golden radiance gradually spread out from the messy square, and a terrifying aura immediately enveloped the sky. Then, a figure slowly walked out. His whole body was wrapped in the golden radiance, and people could vaguely see that it was Du Xiaofu. The golden radiance gradually converged, and then a golden spear was revealed. The mysterious runes on the spear were flickering, accompanied by the faint remnants of lightning. The surrounding space was faintly distorted, and the spear trembled, and the sound of wind and thunder was heard. Buzz! In the next moment, the golden talisman engravings on the body of the golden long spear condensed into a pair of illusory wings of a golden-winged rock. It flapped its wings, and a domineering and terrifying aura soared into the sky. Boom! At this moment, the dazzling golden runes in the sky were like the sun, and instantly rushed into the sky. At this moment, all the onlooking disciples of the ancient sky sect and the elders on the high platform could feel the terrifying and domineering energy contained in the terrifying golden spear. Withdraw. At the same time, a smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's pale face. He stomped his feet on the ground and soared into the sky. He reached out and directly grasped the golden spear in his hand. Buzz! At this moment, the sound of wind and thunder resounded on the golden spear, and a terrifying aura swept out. It was like the king of spears, domineering and terrifying, and suppressed the sky. The Tao artifact is complete, and the lightning tribulation has baptized it. Martial Uncle Du withstood the terrifying lightning tribulation. That golden spear is like the king of weapons. Looking at the purple-robed figure holding the golden spear in the sky, the surroundings were extremely quiet. After a short period of silence and shock, suddenly, they were completely boiling with excitement. The president will win. Martial Uncle Du, good job. Countless onlooking disciples of the Manchu were so excited that their faces turned red. Cheers and exclamations rang out, and the sound waves were monstrous. This is a beginner-grade Tao artifact, and it has integrated the beast energy of the golden-winged rock. It's called the Golden Dragon. Du Xiaofu's voice reverberated in all directions of the square. Du Xiaofu stepped into the air, carrying a symbolic and mysterious broadsword on his back. He held a golden spear in his hand, and a faint golden halo enveloped him. He was domineering and brilliant. This kid is really terrifying. On the high platform, the eyes of all the elders and protectors were filled with shock and excitement. They all looked at the purple-robed figure in the sky and sighed. To forge a true Tao artifact with a 6-star mystical realm cultivation base, how freakish was that? Not long ago, the purple-robed youth had defeated Sima Muhan with his cultivation of the complete martial lord realm, and bravely won the championship of the inner sect disciples. At the Talisman Alliance competition, he had attracted a 1-star lightning tribulation and refined a Tao artifact. His martial Tao was terrifying, and his talisman Tao was also shocking. How powerful was that? Martial Uncle Du, good job. The eyes of the surrounding disciples trembled. Their admiration for the purple-robed figure had already reached a fanatical level. Many disciples who were originally cheering for Mizixia, Chao Zhao, Guzong, and the others had also been successfully roped in by Du Xiaofu at this moment. However, at this moment, Chao Zhao and Zhou Yinger were looking at the purple-robed youth in the sky with cold and indescribable anger in their eyes. Looks like the alchemy symbol master and weapon symbol master competitions have been settled. Mizixia won the championship in the alchemy symbol master competition, while Du Xiaofu won the championship in the weapon refinement competition. On the high platform, Elder Hu Sankuan said. Elder Huang Yirong stood up and looked at the square. She stretched out her hand and made a slight gesture in the air. The uproar in the square gradually calmed down. The Talisman Alliance competition's alchemy symbol master and weapon symbol master competition has ended. Next, Elder Huang Yirong's voice contained profound energy and reverberated in the sky. Elder Huang, please wait. At this moment, a voice rang out in the air. As the sound of the voice faded, the crowd inclined their heads, their gazes landing on Du Xiaofu. The voice was none other than Du Xiaofu. Under everyone's gazes, Du Xiaofu's voice slowly sounded. He put away the golden spear in his hand and raised his head to look at Elder Huang Yirong. He asked, Elder Huang, may I know how much longer until the competition? Chapter 703. The light in Elder Huang Yirong's eyes flickered, after which, she turned her head and looked at the gigantic hourglass on the elder's seat behind her. Fine sand was slowly falling into the hourglass. She said to Du Xiaofu, there should be about 2 more hours. 2 hours, that should be enough, Du Xiaofu murmured softly. He then said to Elder Huang Yirong, Elder Huang, since the competition is not over yet, I still have time to participate in the Alchemy Talisman Master Competition, right? You still want to participate in the Alchemy Talisman Master Competition? Elder Huang Yirong's eyes were filled with disbelief. The last 2 hours were far from enough to participate in the Alchemy Talisman Master Competition. Mizixia had already refined a half-royal grade elixir and used almost 5 days. Even if he refined a spiritual grade elixir now, it would take a few hours with the cultivation of a 6-star Talisman Master. This would not change the ranking of the Alchemy Talisman Master Competition at all. It was also impossible to compete for the championship. Du Xiaofu still wants to participate in the Alchemy Talisman Master Competition? Is Martial Uncle Du mistaken? He still wants to participate in the Alchemy Talisman Master Competition in the last 2 hours? Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the elders, protectors, and the surrounding Manchu disciples on the high platform were all puzzled and surprised. While everyone was surprised, Du Xiaofu stuffed a few elixirs into his mouth and swallowed them all. He said to Elder Huang Yirong, Elder Huang, the Talisman Union competition does not limit one person to only one type of competition. If I continue to participate in the Alchemy Talisman Master competition now, it should be fine, right? If you continue to participate, there will naturally be no problem. However, after the last 2 hours, it will be completely over. Think carefully. Elder Huang Yirong nodded. She thought that when Du Xiaofu filled in the registration form, he had filled in the refining materials and elixirs. She originally thought that Du Xiaofu had made preparations before deciding which type of competition to participate in. Now it seemed that Elder Huang Yirong only knew that Du Xiaofu had long planned to participate in both types of competition. If that's the case, then I'll continue. Du Xiaofu nodded. There was still half of his seat left. He took a deep breath, and then his eyes flickered as he took out the spirit medicines from his bag of the cosmos and placed them neatly on the stone platform. This brat, what is he trying to do? Could there be any changes in the last 2 hours? Then let's wait for another 2 hours. I want to see what this brat has up his sleeve. All the elders and protectors sat down again, and their curious gazes fell on Du Xiaofu. 2 hours to refine a pill. Humph. I'd like to see how you're going to humiliate yourself. Not far away, Chao Zhao let out a deep snort, a severe chill rippling through his body. Boom. In front of that half of the stone platform, after calming himself down, Du Xiaofu once again condensed his 5-colored spiritual stove symbol cauldron. Huff huff. Inside the spiritual stove symbol cauldron, blazing flames whistled, and Du Xiaofu started to move his hands. All the spiritual medicines in front of him were packed up and thrown into the spiritual stove symbol cauldron. Refining all the spiritual medicines at the same time. What is this brat trying to do? Heavens! What is this brat trying to do? Is it even possible to refine all the spiritual medicines at the same time? Is this brat crazy? Seeing Du Xiaofu's actions, many of the elders and protectors were immediately dumbfounded. If you want to refine all the spiritual herbs at the same time to save time, but if you don't have enough spiritual power, then you're just looking for trouble. This is very harsh on spiritual power and alchemy attainments. Only those alchemy talisman grandmasters dare to try. Seeing Du Xiaofu's crazy actions, Elder Huang Yirong muttered in shock. In the field, Mi Zixia stood calmly, looking at the current Du Xiaofu with some fluctuations. Walala! Du Xiaofu's hand seals kept changing, and his complexion became paler and paler. As the flames inside the cauldron surged out, the surrounding temperature became extremely high, and the spiritual medicines inside the spiritual stove symbol cauldron were immediately engulfed by the blazing flames. Under the control of Du Xiaofu's soul force, all kinds of spiritual medicines were refined by the flames, gradually turning into liquid. Ripples of energy started to spread out. At this moment, everyone's gaze was firmly fixed on Du Xiaofu's every action, attracted by Du Xiaofu's crazy actions. In the field, many people with extraordinary eyesight were staring at Du Xiaofu's rapidly changing hand seals, as well as the fluctuations of energy inside the spiritual stove symbol cauldron, and their faces became filled with shock. Feeling the changes in the flames and spiritual liquid inside the spiritual stove symbol cauldron, Du Xiaofu was completely focused, not daring to show the slightest carelessness. In these last 2 hours, no accident could happen. Inside the spiritual stove symbol cauldron, under the blazing temperature, the flames were unceasingly refining the impurities inside the spiritual liquid. Time slowly passed, not stopping for Du Xiaofu. Buzz! In that enormous hourglass, the last strand of sand was completely spilled, and a deep and melodious sound of a bell resounded in the whole field. The 2 hours are up. At this moment, everyone's gaze was firmly fixed on Du Xiaofu's body. President, do your best. In the World Society, Gu Zhongyu, Wang Mingqiao, and the others were clenching their fists, feeling extremely nervous. Uncle Du, do your best. At this moment, among the surrounding disciples, there were quite a few who were silently looking forward to the most eye-catching purple-gowned figure in the field. Humph, asking for humiliation. Chao Zhao sneered, and a trace of coldness passed through his eyes. However, right at this instant, the spiritual stove symbol cauldron in front of Du Xiaofu suddenly emitted a dazzling radiance. Afterwards, the cauldron dissipated, and a palm-sized spiritual liquid was wrapped in Du Xiaofu's palm. What's that? It's not a pill, but a spiritual liquid. Did he succeed? At this moment, everyone's gaze was fixed on the spiritual liquid in Du Xiaofu's palm, and they could clearly feel that the fluctuations of energy contained in that spiritual liquid were extremely abundant. However, everyone felt that this spiritual liquid refined by Du Xiaofu was far from enough to compare with the pills refined by Chao Zhao and Mi Zixia. Time is up. The medicine symbol master competition and the tool symbol master competition are now over. Now, I invite all the tool symbol masters and medicine symbol masters to present their finished products and let the elders decide their level. Elder Huang Yirong stood up once again, and her voice was filled with profound energy. Afterwards, some attendants of the Manchu came to collect the pills, talismans, tools, and spiritual tools in everyone's hands. Du Xiaofu put the spiritual liquid in his hand into a jade bottle, and together with his golden spear, he handed it over to an attendant and brought it to the elders' seats on the platform. The elders on the platform started to appraise the level of the competition. As for who would win and who would lose, the elders present already had an idea in mind, so this kind of appraisal wasn't hard at all. To the spectating disciples in the surroundings, the final result was already more or less clear. Only, in the elders' seats, the gazes of all the elders finally fell on the spiritual liquid refined by Du Xiaofu, and they revealed puzzled looks. Du Xiaofu, what kind of object did you refine? Even I and the elders are unable to figure it out. It's the first time we've seen something like this. In the end, Elder Huang Yirong had no choice but to ask Du Xiaofu. If this was refined by someone else, the elders wouldn't even give it a second glance. However, this was refined by Du Xiaofu, so they would carefully study it. Du Xiaofu raised his head, looked at Elder Huang Yirong, and said, "This spiritual liquid is called spirit-increasing powder, and it's used externally on spirit talisman masters. As for the specific effects, I think Elder Huang will know after trying it out. Even if I say it out loud, no one will believe me." Humph, it's just a failed spiritual liquid. What a mess, trying to mystify others. Chao Zhao coldly glanced at Du Xiaofu, who wasn't far away, with a trace of coldness in his eyes. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, many of the elders were puzzled. Elder Huang Yirong's eyes flickered, and after exchanging glances with the other elders, she nodded. She formed a seal with her hands, and a gentle light emitted from the center of her palm. She poured out a strand of the spiritual liquid that Du Xiaofu had just refined from the jade bottle into her palm. Chi la la! Elder Huang Yirong closed her eyes, and waves of runes flew out from her palm, wrapping around the spiritual liquid that Du Xiaofu had refined. Then, she swallowed it into her palm, and her entire body was wrapped in light, like a divine light, causing ripples in one's heart. At this moment, all of the elders and protectors were quietly looking at Elder Huang Yirong's body, with doubt and anticipation. After a moment, the light on Elder Huang Yirong's body disappeared. The moment she opened her eyes, there were violent ripples in her eyes. Then, Elder Huang Yirong's expression suddenly changed. Her eyes were filled with shock as they landed on Du Xiaofu's body. Her body trembled as if she had seen the most inconceivable thing. "Elder Huang, what is Du Xiaofu refining?" Feeling Elder Huang Yirong's excitement, the elders beside her were puzzled. Elder Huang Yirong came back to her senses, and her eyes couldn't help but tremble. Then, she lowered her voice and said something to the elders beside her. "What?" When all of the elders heard this, their faces immediately changed, and they looked at Elder Huang Yirong in shock. "Elder Huang, is what you said true?" Elder Hu Sankuan looked at Elder Huang Yirong closely. Elder Huang Yirong nodded, and nodded vigorously in shock. She said to Elder Hu Sankuan with certainty, "I just tried it myself, so of course I'm not wrong." Unbelievable, really unbelievable. If our ancient heaven sect can get this formula, then, in an instant, the gazes of the elders on the high platform all landed on Du Xiaofu's body in shock. Greetings to the judges of the Elder Group, the final champion of the Alchemy Talisman Master Competition and the Weapon Talisman Master Competition. And now the results are out. After a moment, Elder Huang Yirong looked at the crowd, and her voice, which contained profound qi, was loud enough for all of the disciples to hear clearly. "I've already given up on the treatment of waking up early. I'm begging for a way to wake up early." Chapter 704. At this moment, the entire place was silent. Everyone was looking at Elder Huang Yirong. Everyone knew that according to the rules of the Talisman League, the winner of the Alchemy Symbol Master and Weapon Symbol Master Champion would be the two deputy leaders of the next Talisman League. As for these two champions, most of the spectating disciples already had a conclusion in their hearts. Now, they were just waiting for the official announcement of the results. So what if he's the winner? It's useless. You'll suffer when the time comes. Chao Zhao looked at Du Xiaofu coldly. He was furious when he saw that Du Xiaofu had defeated Guzong. Elder Huang Yirong gazed at the surroundings of the square and said, "The final results of the Equipment Talisman Master and Medicine Talisman Master competitions of the Talisman Alliance this time is that the champion of the Equipment Talisman Master competition is Du Xiaofu. Good job, President. Marshal Uncle Du is the best." As soon as Elder Huang Yirong finished speaking, cheers and applause could be heard. Gu Zhangyu, Wang Mingqiao, and the other World Society disciples felt their blood boiling. Elder Huang Yirong looked around and raised her hand to signal the crowd. She continued, "As for the winner of the Alchemy Symbol Master Competition, it's a little special this time. After the final decision of the elders, the winner is also Du Xiaofu." A voice that was mixed with profound energy resounded in the surroundings of the plaza. When Elder Huang Yirong's voice fell, it caused the surroundings to instantly fall into a temporary silence. The winner of the Alchemy Symbol Master Competition is also Martial Uncle Du? Did I hear wrongly? Did I hear wrongly? Won 2 championships by himself? The pill that Martial Uncle Du refined in the last 2 hours is better than the half-royal grade pill that senior brother Mizisha refined in 5 days? Everyone was confused. All the disciples thought that they had heard wrongly. They looked around and looked at each other. This is impossible. How is this possible? This is absolutely impossible. Chao Zhao kept shaking his head. He didn't believe it. This was absolutely impossible. How could the spiritual liquid Du Xiaofu refined in 2 hours be better than the half-step royal grade medicinal pill refined by Mizisha? This was clearly impossible. At this moment, the brown eyes of Mizisha, who had always been calm and collected, also rippled a little. However, they soon regained their calmness, and there were no ripples in them. Elder Huang, how can Du Xiaofu's messy spirit liquid win against senior brother Mizisha? Elder Huang, please dispel my doubts. Chao Zhao raised his head and asked Elder Huang Yirong. In his heart, he was unconvinced. If Du Xiaofu won the Alchemy and Talisman Master Championship, then all his previous plans would be ruined. Elder Huang Yirong looked at Chao Zhao and smiled. I'm sure that many of you have doubts in your heart. Let me explain it to you. Elder Huang Yirong raised her head slightly to look at the surroundings, and then her voice that contained profound energy sounded out slowly. She said, there's a rule in the Talisman Alliance competition. During the Alchemist, Talisman Master, Talisman Master, Talisman Master, Talisman Master, and Talisman Master, the group of elders will be the judge in the end, and the group of elders can decide all matters related to the competition. In other words, not only does the quality of the medicinal pills refined have to be looked at, the effects of the medicinal pills are also looked at. After pausing for a moment, Elder Huang Yirong continued, the Dragon Star Mysterious Heaven pill refined by Mizisha has already reached the half-royal grade. It can increase the chances of a Martial King, complete realm cultivator breaking through to the Martial King realm by 20% after consuming it. It's priceless and can't be said to be low. Such talent is considered top-notch and is rare in the Manchu. However, the spirit-increasing powder, refined by Du Xiaofu, has the effect of increasing the spiritual roots of a talisman master. There are many pill formulas that can increase the chances of a Martial King realm cultivator breaking through to the Martial King realm, but pill formulas that can increase the spiritual roots of a talisman master are rare and the most difficult to achieve. Therefore, after the group of elders weighed the pros and cons, they finally decided that Du Xiaofu's spirit-increasing powder is the winner. There's no objection. Increasing the spiritual roots. Mizisha's brown eyes moved slightly, and there were ripples in them. Heavens, the spirit-increasing powder can actually increase the spiritual roots. The eyes of all the talisman masters present trembled. To them, the meaning of increasing the spiritual roots was naturally clearer than the cultivators. Martial Uncle Du is mighty. Martial Uncle Du. Following Elder Huang Yirong's words, the cheers of the crowd were incessant, and the sound was so loud that it pierced through the clouds. It was said that in the past 1,000 years, there were only a few people who had won 2 championships. Elder Huang, I'm not convinced. Chao Zhao's eyes were filled with hatred, and he was not convinced. How could his plan be completely ruined? Junior Chao, the group of elders has decided according to the rules. We have to accept it. A loss is a loss, and there's nothing to be unconvinced about. Mizisha waved her hand and transmitted her voice to Chao Zhao's ears. Hearing this, Chao Zhao could only be filled with hatred, and his cold gaze fell on Du Xiaofu. This guy, he's a double champion. If Master knows, he'll be overjoyed. Yu Wanli rubbed his hands in excitement. Next, it's the Talisman Master Competition. Those who are participating in the Talisman Master Competition can come on stage. The rest can leave. Elder Huang Yirong's voice rang out amidst the uproar. However, it was still able to clearly land in everyone's ears, causing the surrounding uproar that had soared to the clouds to slowly calm down. On the square, the alchemy and weapon talisman masters who had just participated in the Talisman Master Competition and Talisman Master Competition began to slowly leave. Around 60 to 70 talisman masters who had been waiting below began to slowly walk onto the stage, and they were all filled with excitement. Why are Senior Mi Zixia and Martial Uncle Du still on the stage? At this moment, someone discovered that all the alchemy and weapon talisman masters had already left the stage. But only Mi Zixia and Du Xiaofu were still on the stage, and they had no intention of leaving. I heard that Senior Mi Zixia had already signed up for the Talisman Master Competition and the Talisman Master Competition. No wonder Senior Mi Zixia didn't leave the stage. Could it be that Martial Uncle Du still wants to participate in the Talisman Master Competition? Amidst the whispers around the square, the gazes of the elders and protectors on the high platform also moved. With regards to Mi Zixia's participation in the Talisman Master Competition, it seemed that all the elders and protectors had already known about it, and thus it wasn't strange. However, with regards to Du Xiaofu still being on the stage, each and every one of the elders and protectors had a slight change of expression in their eyes. Du Xiaofu, can you leave the stage and rest? Elder Hu Sankuan couldn't help but remind Du Xiaofu. I still have to participate in the Talisman Master Competition, so I can't leave the stage. Du Xiaofu replied to Elder Hu Sankuan with a slight smile on his extremely pale face. This fellow really wants to participate in the Talisman Master Competition. As Du Xiaofu's voice fell, it caused the gazes of many people present to change. Mi Zixia faintly glanced sideways, and his brown eyes also unintentionally landed on Du Xiaofu. Elder Huang Yirong and Elder Hu Sankuan looked at each other with astonishment in their eyes. All the disciples participating in the Talisman Master Competition probably already know the rules. The Talisman Master Competition is a competition of your attainments in talisman arrays. Therefore, any skills that are unrelated to the Talisman Master Competition cannot be used. Later, I will personally set up an illusory talisman array. Whoever can break out of the array first will be the champion of the Talisman Master Competition. Elder Huang Yirong's voice sounded out. Du Xiaofu's eyes moved, and he slightly bitterly smiled. Elder Huang Yirong's words couldn't be any clearer. Only the attainments of talisman masters could break out of the array. Some martial arts and talisman masters could only use their attainments in talisman masters, and the competition was entirely based on their attainments in talisman arrays. Du Xiaofu was helpless. If there wasn't such a restriction, it would be easy for him to break out of the array with his mountain pulse spirit. However, if he wanted to test his attainments in talisman arrays, he would have to rely on his own attainments in talisman arrays. Set up the array. Elder Huang Yirong landed on the square and waved her hand. A wave of aura rippled out from her body, and a handprint condensed in her hands. She communicated with the surrounding energy of heaven and earth, and a dazzling light spread out from her body. In a short period of time, Elder Huang Yirong condensed one array flag after another between her hands. A total of 24 array flags immediately condensed, and all of them spread out a shocking fluctuation. A complete 6-star talisman array. Du Xiaofu frowned slightly. It wouldn't be easy to break a complete 6-star talisman array that was personally set up by an elder. Illusory array. Elder Huang Yirong shouted and waved her hand. The 24 array flags between her hands suddenly swept up into the sky. Swoosh, swoosh. The 24 array flags immediately wrapped all the talisman masters in the square with lightning-like speed and trajectory. The surrounding air waves violently fluctuated, and suddenly the space became chaotic, and dazzling runes spread out in the sky. Boom! The 5 elements talisman energy in the surroundings condensed, and then a powerful talisman array emerged, causing the wind and clouds to surge in the sky. The space around the talisman array was chaotic, and waves of strange energy dazzled the eyes of those who looked at it, and spiritual energy rippled. The illusory array was not an offensive talisman array. The Talisman Alliance competition was only to test the talisman master's attainments in talisman arrays, so it wasn't too dangerous. However, if this illusory symbol array were to be used against an enemy, it would have a unique advantage. Compared to an offensive symbol array, it was absolutely terrifying. Once the opponent was trapped in the illusory array, if they couldn't break out of it, it was possible that they would be trapped to death. Some powerful illusory arrays could even cause the trap to be in an illusion, and they would kill each other and kill themselves. Chapter 705. Above the square, a dazzling array, enveloped all the Manchu talisman masters participating in the Talisman League Talisman Array competition. Roar! Du Xiaofu's vision blurred, and he appeared in a vast mountain range. The roars of beasts could be heard from time to time. Hallucinatory talisman array, eroding one's senses, causing one to lose themselves in it. Du Xiaofu closed his eyes. He had learned a lot from his big brother, Jin Xingchun, when it came to understanding talisman arrays. Du Xiaofu had spent a lot of time and effort on comprehending the hallucinatory talisman array not long ago. Block off all senses, return your mind to one. Not be invaded by evil spirits, not be confused by external things, return to the origin. Du Xiaofu murmured incantations and his hand seals slowly changed. Chi. When Du Xiaofu opened his eyes again, the mountain range in front of him had already disappeared, and his body was deep in a chaotic array of runes. The dazzling talisman arrays flickered and fluctuated, causing one's soul to ripple as if they were in a whirlpool. What a powerful hallucinatory talisman array! Du Xiaofu muttered softly as he carefully sized up the chaotic talisman markings in the surroundings. He couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. If it wasn't for Zhen Qingchuan's guidance and supervision of his talisman arrays, he would probably be powerless right now. Begin to break the array, Du Xiaofu muttered. Since he couldn't use his pulse spirit, he could only break the array himself. Although it was a perfect 6-star talisman array, it wasn't impossible for him to break it as a talisman master. Everyone around the square was looking forward to seeing who would be the first to break the talisman array and become the champion of the Talisman Master competition. The winner of the Talisman Master competition should be Senior Brother Mi Zixia. Rumor has it that Senior Brother Mi Zixia's major is Talisman Array Master and minor is Medicine Talisman Master. Senior Brother Mi Zixia has always been regarded as the alliance chief of the Quasi-Symbol Alliance. His attainments as a symbol master are hard to surpass among his peers. There's hope for Martial Uncle Du as well. It's rumored that Martial Uncle Du's attainments and formations are not to be underestimated. During the new Intersect Disciple competition, Martial Uncle Du was able to easily break Mu Jiajia's seal array. It's said that a 6-star Talisman Master from the Talisman League was defeated by Uncle Master Du in seconds. Martial Uncle Du has already won 2 championships. Does he want to win the Grand Slam of the Talisman League this time? I don't think that's possible. Senior Brother Mi Zixia, Senior Brother Chao Zhao, and the others would lose face. The surrounding disciples whispered to each other in anticipation. Guild Master, take down the Grand Slam and teach the Talisman League a lesson. Gu Zhangyu, Wang Mingqiao, and the others were filled with anticipation. On the high platform, the gazes of all the elders and protectors were uncertain. With Du Xiaofu present, after the unforeseen events of the Weapon Symbol Master and Alchemy Symbol Master Grand Competition, these elders and protectors did not dare to rashly make a conclusion. Time passed slowly. Everyone was waiting for someone to break the talisman array. 6 hours later, Elder Huang Yirong, who was sitting at the protector seat of Elder Gaodai, suddenly sighed softly. Her eyes were filled with ripples as she lamented. Elder Huang, what's wrong? All the elders and protectors looked at Elder Huang Yirong. Elder Huang Yirong was the one who set up the hallucinatory talisman array. She naturally knew everything that happened inside. Mi Zixia's attainments and formations are unmatched among his peers. Elder Huang Yirong said softly, Is Mi Zixia going to win? Elder Hu Sankuan asked. He was not surprised at all. Mi Zixia was supposed to be the champion of the Talisman Master competition in the hearts of all the elders and protectors. Elder Huang Yirong helplessly smiled bitterly and shook her head at Elder Hu Sankuan. She said, It is a pity that Mi Zixia met Du Xiaofu. The two of them are almost equally matched in terms of formation attainments. Mi Zixia's cultivation is higher after all. Even if his attainments and formations are on par with Du Xiaofu, wouldn't he be able to suppress Du Xiaofu? Elder Hao Zhongwei asked doubtfully. Elder Huang Yirong's lips curled into a bitter smile as she said, Mi Zixia's cultivation is slightly higher, but this time, he should have been a little impatient in his heart, causing his mental state to be affected. As for Du Xiaofu's mental state, to be honest, even I am surprised. For this brat to be so outstanding, Perhaps I have seen some of the reasons. Chi. Following Elder Huang Yirong's words, the talisman array that covered the sky suddenly rippled as dazzling runes flickered. At a certain corner of the talisman array, dazzling runes began to shatter and crack. Like a broken mirror, cracks slowly spread on the surface of the array. In the end, the cracks climbed up and a dazzling brilliance overflowed. Walala! A purple-robed figure covered in dazzling white light appeared. The dazzling white light around him was like a divine light, and it rippled with an ancient aura. Swish, swish. When the purple-robed figure appeared, everyone was stunned. Their gazes were all fixed on a single person. At this moment, the purple-robed figure was the center of attention. He was unparalleled. Impossible. How can it be him? This is impossible. This is definitely impossible. Chao Zhao shook his head as his eyes trembled in disbelief. Walala! After the green-robed figure appeared, the cracks on the talisman array became wider and wider. Finally, the entire talisman array shattered like fireworks. On the square, all the talisman masters were revealed. Many of them were dumbfounded, and they only recovered from their shock after a while. Many disciples were within the talisman array just now, and it was obvious that they had been affected by the array and lost. Mizisha's figure appeared on the square and stood silently. Her silky smooth black hair flowed down her shoulders, and her brown eyes were slightly dazed at this moment. That kind of gaze made others not dare to look at her for too long. After a while, they gradually returned to normal. According to the rules of the Talisman Alliance competition, Du Xiaofu was the first to break the array in the last round of the Talisman Alliance competition, and he will be the champion of this round. He will also be the overall champion of the Talisman Alliance competition, and he will be the leader of the Talisman Alliance. As for the two deputy leaders, the Manchu will decide on a date after a discussion. Elder Huang Yirong's voice that contained profound qi reverberated throughout the square, and it was like thunder in the ears of the surrounding disciples. The hearts of all the surrounding disciples trembled. The champion of the Talisman Alliance competition, the champion of the Medicine Talisman Master, the Weapon Talisman Master, and the Formation Talisman Master was a grand slam. This was a miracle that exceeded everyone's imagination. Who would have thought that Du Xiaofu, who hadn't been in the Ancient Sky Sect for too long, would actually win 3 championships in this year's Talisman Alliance competition, and he suppressed all the Talisman Masters of the Ancient Sky Sect. This was unbelievable. Elder Huang Yirong's announcement caused the entire square to be stunned into silence. At this moment, all the gazes fell on the square with astonishment, and on the body of the purple-robed young man. It was that young man, who was only 17 or 18 years old, who suppressed Mizisha and all the other talisman masters of the ancient sky sect of the same generation to become a grand slam. Not long ago, the purple-robed young man had suppressed Sima Muhan to become the champion of the competition between the new disciples. The purple-robed young man's martial Dao and talisman Dao were unparalleled among his peers, and he was a terrifying all-round cultivator of both martial Dao and talisman Dao. Everyone present understood that this time, Du Xiaofu's name would definitely stand tall in the ancient sky sect and resound throughout the Central Plains. Congratulations to Martial Uncle Du for winning the championship. Congratulations to Martial Uncle Du. After a short moment of silence around the square, shouts and cheers soared into the sky. The purple-robed young man, with an unparalleled elegance, was truly imprinted in the hearts of all the Manchu disciples. This is impossible. How can he be so strong? In the crowd, Zhou Yinger's eyes trembled as she looked at the purple-robed young man who was receiving the attention of tens of thousands of people in the square. In the square, a trace of blood flowed out from the corner of Du Xiaofu's mouth. After stuffing the elixir he had bought into his mouth, he raised his head and looked at the cheering crowd. At this moment, the blood in his heart was boiling. Phew! After taking a deep breath, Du Xiaofu's lips curled into a smile. In his heart, he once again felt that Big Brother Zhan Qingchuan's attainments and talisman arrays were truly extraordinary. Du Xiaofu knew that if it weren't for Big Brother Zhan Qingchuan's constant guidance, it wouldn't have been so easy for him to break the psychedelic talisman array that Elder Huang Yirong had just set up. As far as I know, you're the champion of the Ancient Sky Sect's Talisman League competition. Congratulations to Martial Uncle Du. An extremely comfortable voice sounded. Mi Zixiao walked to Du Xiaofu's side with a smile that was enough to mesmerize any girl. Du Xiaofu looked at Mi Zixiao in surprise. Then, he smiled and said, I was just a little lucky. Haha, Martial Uncle Du must be joking. This isn't luck, it's just Martial Uncle Du's strength. If there's a chance, I hope that Martial Uncle Du can guide us juniors. Mi Zixiao laughed lightly. Of course, of course. If there's a chance, as your martial uncle, I won't hide anything. I'll definitely guide you well. Du Xiaofu could tell that although Mi Zixiao was smiling insincerely, he was saying that although he had won the championship, he was still a senior. Thus, it was not a big deal for him to win the championship. Du Xiaofu immediately acted like a senior of the sect and spoke in an old-fashioned manner. I just found out that today is Christmas Eve. I wish all my readers happiness and safety. Chapter 706. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Mi Zixiao was slightly taken aback. It was as if she hadn't expected Du Xiaofu to be so blunt and go along with the flow. Congratulations, Martial Uncle Du. My name is Gu Zong. Right at this moment, a hearty voice sounded out, and a young man who wasn't tall but was extremely tall and sturdy arrived before Du Xiaofu and bowed respectfully. It was precisely Gu Zong, who originally had great hopes of becoming the champion of the artifact symbol master competition. Du Xiaofu looked at Gu Zong and felt that Gu Zong's attitude was much more sincere. He smiled faintly and said, No need to be so polite. You're quite skilled in refining weapons. I was just lucky to win a little. Du Xiaofu could tell that Gu Zong's attainments in weapon refinement were not low. If he did not rely on the secret soldier art, it would be difficult for him to surpass Gu Zong in weapon refinement. Martial Uncle Du, you must be joking. The ability to integrate beast energy is not something we can compare to. Gu Zong bitterly smiled. He had only heard of inscribing beast energy on practitioner weapon refinement from rumors. This time, he had truly witnessed the method of inscribing beast energy on a practitioner weapon, and his heart was shocked. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly and didn't say anything else. After bidding farewell to Mi Zixiao and Gu Zong, he turned around and gestured to Yu Wanli to leave. He had used up too much energy and needed to recover as soon as possible. As Du Xiaofu walked down the square, the Manchu disciples of the World Society immediately crowded around him. The group of people left the square in a grandiose manner. With Du Xiaofu's departure, the highly anticipated Talisman League competition slowly came to an end. This fellow is always able to give people unexpected surprises. Not long after, in the main hall of the ancient sky sect, Sima Tuxing's face was filled with shock. His glass-like eyes couldn't help but ripple. That kid is a freak, an absolute freak. I really don't know where his master came from and who could train such a disciple. Protector Hao was shocked. His gaze fluctuated as he sighed. He then looked at Sima Tuxing and asked, Sect Master, Du Xiaofu has the pill formula to strengthen spirit roots, the refining method to integrate beast energy, the profound origin pill, and the berserk pill. These are things that even our ancient sky sect doesn't have. If we, Protector Hao, do you think it's that kid's idea? Sima Tuxing faintly smiled and said, Origin pill, and the berserk pill. Let's see if Elder Huang and the others can't help to extract the pill and the refining pill. As for the spirit-increasing spirit powder pill, it should be easy. The spirit-increasing pill. Spirit-increasing spirit pill is spirit pill, as spirit pill, and origin pill, and berserk pill, and see if origin stone pill, and Kin's origin spirit pill. Shi's is? Akaxu is. Protector Hao's eyes lit up with joy. Sima Tuxing nodded and said, Go, but don't let that kid know. The people we sent out to investigate should be back soon. A person can't appear out of thin air. He must have some background. He has been out for so long. I believe there should be news soon. Protector Hao nodded and then turned to leave. Sima Taking Xing sat upright as if he was thinking about something. Then, he smiled and muttered, Now that this brat has appeared, I'm afraid some people will be restless. If you don't seek death, you won't die. Why bother provoking that brat? I'm afraid their intestines are green with regret now. Dusk fell. The curtain of night had become more and more blurry. The sky that was filled with sunset gradually became dull. Stars appeared in the vast sky above the mountains. They hung in the dark blue sky. The undulating foothills entered one's sight. That kid Du Xiaofu has become the leader of the Symbol Alliance. The Symbol Alliance is no longer under our control. I'm afraid something will happen. That kid is still wet behind the ears. I'm afraid there are some things that he can't see clearly. I'm afraid he won't be able to see what's inside even if we give him some benefits. That may not be the case. Even if that kid can't see it himself, there will be others who will remind him. It will be extremely disadvantageous for us at that time. I didn't expect Mi Zixia to fail as well. Otherwise, so many things wouldn't have happened. Let's wait and see. That kid can't do anything by himself. I'm afraid there are some things that we can't see through. Who made the decision to provoke that kid Xiao Zhao? Otherwise, he wouldn't have participated in the Symbol Alliance competition, and all these things wouldn't have happened. In the darkness of the night, a voice resounded from within a talisman array and restriction seal set up in a courtyard. 2 days later, when Du Xiaofu appeared in the outer sect's world pavilion, his pale face was now rosy. Du Xiaofu had also changed into a new purple robe. However, the wide sword that had been wrapped in a purple cloth on his back was still carried on his back. The world pavilion had also been refurbished. It was even more magnificent than before. President, I'm so tired these 2 days. Many people want to join our world society, including many intersect disciples. In addition, many disciples ask when the profound essence pill, berserk pill, and talisman weapon will be sold. There are also spirit increasing powder. Many talisman masters have secretly come to the world pavilion, hoping to buy the spirit increasing powder refined by President. They say they can pay any price. On the 3rd floor of the world pavilion, Gu Zhangyu took a deep breath after he finished speaking. His face was full of smiles and excitement. These days, those senior brothers and sisters of spirit talisman masters, who usually ignored him, were extremely polite in front of him. They were just short of groveling, which made Gu Zhangyu very proud and relieved his anger. Back then, the 4C sect had wrongly accused the World Pavilion of selling medicine. After President won the Symbol Alliance competition, all the negative effects had disappeared. After the Symbol Alliance competition, the World Pavilion became even more popular. The price of Profound Essence Pill, Berserk Pill, and other elixirs in the black market became even more outrageous. Hearing Gu Zhangyu's introduction of the past 2 days, Du Xiaofu smiled faintly and said, "Spread the news. In the future, World Pavilion will only be open for sale 4 times a month. A small portion of the next batch of Profound Essence Pills, Berserk Pills, and Talisman Weapons will be sold in 7 days. The VIP members with the highest rank will have priority." Gu Zhangyu was slightly stunned. Then, he smiled and nodded to Du Xiaofu. "Opening 4 times a month will save us a lot of time. We won't have to watch the World Pavilion every day. However, many talisman masters want to buy spirit-increasing powder. What should we do?" Du Xiaofu smiled faintly and said to Gu Zhangyu, "Spread the news that talisman masters who have completely joined the World Society will have a chance to obtain the spirit-increasing powder. Currently, the spirit-increasing powder is not for sale." "President, you mean?" Hearing this, Gu Zhangyu was stunned. Then, a smile appeared on his face and he said, "Haha, now we won't have to worry about those talisman masters not joining our world guild." Du Xiaofu smiled, and then his brows moved. His clear eyes suddenly flashed with coldness as he said, "There are some other things that should be dealt with in the next 2 days. President." As Du Xiaofu finished speaking, Wang Mingchao's voice sounded, and he rushed to the 3rd floor. "Senior brother Wang, what's wrong with you? Why are you so flustered?" Gu Zhangyu asked Wang Mingchao. Wang Mingchao's face was filled with shock. After taking a deep breath, he said, "It's Wantless. He's waiting downstairs and says he wants to see President." "Wantless is here?" Hearing this, Gu Zhangyu was shocked as well. It was as if he had encountered something extremely shocking. "Who is Wantless?" Du Xiaofu asked Wang Mingchao and Gu Zhangyu. From their shocked expressions, it was not hard to tell that this Wantless was not an ordinary person. "President, this Wantless is not an ordinary person. He's currently ranked 5th on the alchemy ranking. What is he doing here?" Gu Zhangyu was puzzled. A person ranked 5th on the alchemy ranking would not be here for a stroll. If he was here to cause trouble, it would be extremely troublesome. 5th on the alchemy ranking? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and said to Wang Mingqiao, "Since he's here, let him come up. We can't refuse him." "Okay, I'll bring him up." Wang Mingqiao nodded and went downstairs with a shocked expression. An existence like the 5th on the alchemy ranking was definitely out of his reach under normal circumstances. "President, I've heard some gossip about Brother Wantless. Do you want to hear it?" Gu Zhangyu asked Du Xiaofu. As a person ranked 5th on the alchemy ranking, it was inevitable that there would be some gossip in the Manchu. "Tell me about it." Du Xiaofu was interested. Gu Zhangyu smiled and immediately lowered his voice to Du Xiaofu and said, "It's said that Wantless is a prince of an empire. However, he was born of the emperor and a barbarian woman. He was ostracized in the palace. Fortunately, his martial arts talent is extremely high. After joining the ancient sky sect, his status in the Manchu is not to be underestimated." Dong dong. As Gu Zhangyu's gossipy voice fell, the corridor creaked. Then, at the door, a young man slowly walked in. Gu Zhangyu automatically stood aside. There's still one more update. 3 updates in a row. Chapter 707. The young man was tall and slender. He stood there quietly, exuding an otherworldly aura. She was wearing a simple and plain Buddhist robe, but it couldn't hide her beautiful and charming figure. The young man's head was shiny and there were 9 marks on it. It was very eye-catching. Du Xiaofu's eyes flashed with confusion as he looked at the obviously extraordinary young man who was dressed as if he had just walked out of a remote mountain temple. The young man's gaze landed on Du Xiaofu. He didn't even look at Gu Zhangyu as he said, "I need the spirit-increasing powder, the more the better. As long as I have it, I am willing to pay any price." The young man's lips curved into a smile as he spoke. His thin lips were red and had a seductive look. Even a girl would be mesmerized by his red lips. Another good-looking guy. Du Xiaofu sighed. If this guy had some hair on his head and wasn't bald, he would be as good-looking as Mi Zixia. Looking at the bald young man, Du Xiaofu did not need to guess to know that this person was the 5th on the alchemy ranking, Wu Qiu. After looking at him for a while, he shook his head and said, "The spirit-increasing powder is not for sale. I can't help you. I am willing to pay any price for the spirit-increasing powder." Wu Qiu looked at Du Xiaofu. His clear eyes were filled with desire. "You are not a talisman master, so the spirit-increasing powder is useless to you. Seems like the person who needs it is very important to you." Du Xiaofu asked. "For years ago, my sister's spiritual root was injured. I joined the ancient sky sect in hopes of finding a way to heal her spiritual root. But I have been searching for a long time. 2 days ago, I heard that your spirit-increasing powder can heal the spiritual root. So, I want to try," Wu Qiu said. His words were short and clear. Du Xiaofu looked at Wu Qiu and said, "You are willing to do anything for your sister?" "I am willing." Wantless nodded without hesitation. Du Xiaofu looked straight at Wu Qiu. After a while, he seemed to have made a decision. He threw the 3 jade bottles to Wu Qiu and said, "Once a month, soak your body in water and absorb the effects of the medicine. I'll give you 2 years' worth of spirit-increasing powder. If this spirit-increasing powder is effective on your sister's spiritual roots, she should be fully healed in 2 years." Wu Qiu was stunned. Du Xiaofu threw the 3 bottles to him. His eyes flashed with surprise. "What do you need me to do? As long as I can do it, I'll do it. You don't have to do anything. This is my gift to your sister," Du Xiaofu said with a smile. "But you don't know my sister?" Wantless' eyes were filled with doubt. "But I know her brother," Du Xiaofu said. "I still don't understand." Wantless' eyes were filled with doubt. He didn't understand the purple-robed youth in front of him. "Because I also have a sister." "No, I have 2 sisters. I'm willing to do anything for them," Du Xiaofu said with a smile. Wantless' eyes were filled with ripples. He looked at Du Xiaofu for a while and put the bottles into his Qingkuan bag. He said, "I owe you a favor. If you want me to pay you back, you can come to me anytime." Wu Qiu didn't say anything. He turned around and left. Phew. After Wantless left, Gu Zhangyu stood up. His forehead was covered with cold sweat and his face was pale. Although Wantless' aura was restrained, Gu Zhongyu, who was close to him, felt as if he was being suppressed, and his chi stagnated. I heard that senior brother Wantless is a loner in the Manchu. He is not polite to anyone, even me Zixia. I didn't expect him to be so polite to President, Gu Zhongyu said as he looked at me Zixia's back. Du Xiaofu smiled and did not say anything. President, President. After Wantless left, Wang Mingchao's voice could be heard again. He rushed to the third floor of the World Pavilion. Senior brother Wang, did someone come again? Gu Zhongyu asked when he saw the anxious Wang Mingchao. Senior brother Gu Zong is here. He wants to see President. Wang Mingchao looked at Du Xiaofu and said, President, do you want to see him? Why is senior brother Gu Zong here? Gu Zhongyu was also stunned for a moment. Although Gu Zong's ranking on the gold ranking was not as high as Wu Qiu's, all the disciples in the sect clearly knew that as a weapon symbol master, Gu Zong's attainments in refining weapons were second to none among his peers in the ancient sky sect. His status in the sect was extremely high. There were even rumors that with Gu Zong's current development, it would not be difficult for him to become an elder of the ancient heavens sect one day. It's quite lively. Since he's here, let's see him. Du Xiaofu smiled. A moment later, Gu Zong went upstairs. His sturdy and burly body gave off an explosive feeling of power. He looked more like a martial arts cultivator than a talisman master. As one of the best in the art of artifact forging among his peers, Gu Zong's position in the sect was also extremely special. Although his ranking on the gold roll was low, Gu Zong's status in the hearts of the disciples of the Manchu was extremely high. Any disciple who saw him had to be respectful. Everyone knew that they could ask someone to refine a talisman tool or Dao tool at any time. Besides, talisman masters and medicine talisman masters never lacked friends. These people were the most difficult to provoke. I want to learn the art of refining. May I ask for Martial Uncle Du's guidance? Gu Zong looked at Du Xiaofu. From the look in his eyes, this decision seemed to have been carefully considered. When Du Xiaofu heard this, he smiled. The Manchu has many art of refining. I believe that they will all be open to you. That's not what I meant. Gu Zong shook his head and said to Du Xiaofu, I want to learn Martial Uncle Du's art of refining that incorporates beast energy. I know that this art of refining is not something that can be easily taught. Therefore, I am willing to agree to any conditions, even if you want me to be your disciple. As long as Martial Uncle Du can teach me the art of refining. Hearing Gu Zong's words, Gu Zhongyu and Wang Mingchao, who came downstairs with him, were stunned. Then, they looked at Du Xiaofu. The art of refining is indeed not something that can be casually taught. I don't intend to accept a disciple now. Du Xiaofu smiled helplessly. He looked at Gu Zong and said, if you really want to learn the art of refining, it's not like there's no way. What way? As long as I can do it, I will definitely do it. When Gu Zong heard this, his eyes lit up. He thought that there was no hope. If you join the World Society, I can teach you the art of refining. You can also obtain the Spirit Increasing Powder to improve your spiritual roots. Du Xiaofu said seriously. His clear eyes flickered with a faint golden light. I will join. I can join now. I have never joined any faction in the Manchu. I can join the World Society at any time. Gu Zong nodded without hesitation. He wholeheartedly focused on refining. Although he had made a name for himself in the Manchu, he had never joined any faction. But now, for the art of refining, Gu Zong was willing to join the World Society without hesitation. It's not as simple as joining. Du Xiaofu shook his head at Gu Zong. The factions in the ancient heaven sect were different from those in the outside world. Generally speaking, the factions formed by the disciples of the ancient heaven sect would cease to exist once they left the ancient heaven sect. At most, they would be able to maintain a friendship. Behind the disciples of the ancient heaven sect, most of them had a huge family or faction. Some even had a huge empire behind them. The ancient heaven sect had more than 100,000 permanent disciples. Who knew how many princes, princesses, nobles, and ministers there were? How could such a disciple casually join another faction? The factions in the ancient heaven sect were formed by the disciples forming factions. The biggest benefit of joining was to pave the way for the future and build a good relationship. On the other hand, it was to fight for more cultivation resources in the Manchu. But once they left the ancient heaven sect, such a faction was equivalent to nothingness. There were not many restrictions. After a slight pause, Du Xiaofu said to Guzong seriously, "What I want is for you to truly join the World Society and become a member of the World Society. Even if you leave the ancient heaven sect in the future, you will still be a member of the World Society. I believe you should be very clear about everything, so I don't need to say more." Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Wang Mingqiao and Gu Zhongyu's expressions changed. They seemed to have understood something. At this moment, Gu Zong's expression changed slightly. There was hesitation in his eyes. He naturally understood everything. If he joined the World Society, he would truly join the World Society in the future. "You can think about it carefully first. It won't be too late to tell me later," Du Xiaofu said to the hesitant Gu Zong with a smile. Gu Zong raised his head and looked at Du Xiaofu. There was a slight fluctuation in his eyes as he said, "I wonder if I have to do something else after joining the World Society?" "No need. It's fine as long as you don't betray the World Society," Du Xiaofu said to Guzong. "The World Society will absolutely not interfere with the family behind you." "Okay, I'm willing to join the World Society." Guzong nodded when he heard this. He couldn't refuse that kind of refining technique. Chapter 708. Welcome to the World Club. Du Xiaofu stood up and walked in front of Guzong. "From today onwards, you're a member of the World Club. I'll tell you more about the World Club in the future, but it's not appropriate for the Manchu to announce this to the public yet." "I understand." Guzong nodded. The Manchu wouldn't allow their disciples to form a faction. If the Manchu knew about this, there would be a lot of trouble and the consequences would be dire. "I'll give you the method of refining the weapon with beast energy in the next 2 days. Before that, I still have some things to do." Du Xiaofu nodded and said to Guzong, "Is it because of the World Club? Since I've joined the World Club, I naturally have to help solve its problems. I didn't join purely for the method of refining weapons. I've also heard about the situation of the World Club. In the next 2 days, I'll try my best to persuade a few alchemy talisman masters and weapon talisman masters who are close to me to join the World Club. I believe it won't be a problem. What do you think?" Guzong had already changed the way he addressed Guzong. He definitely didn't join the World Club purely for the method of refining weapons. "That's great. Thank you." Du Xiaofu nodded. The alchemy talisman masters that Guzong knew wouldn't be simple. If they could join the World Club, they would naturally be able to solve World Pavilion's current problems. After a while, Guzong left. Only Wang Mingqiao, Gu Zhongyu, and Du Xiaofu were left on the 3rd floor of World Pavilion. Gu Zhongyu and Wang Mingqiao lowered their heads and looked at each other. After understanding each other, Gu Zhongyu looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Leader, can we really join the World Club?" During this period of time, after everything that happened in the World Club, Wang Mingqiao and Gu Zhongyu knew clearly what they could get by following the purple-robed youth. More importantly, they knew that the purple-robed youth in front of them was fearless for the sake of the ordinary disciples. Chang Qinghai, Bai Yichen, Fei Qingming, and the others had taken great care of the World Club's disciples. His talent was unparalleled, and his future was boundless. He could become a super expert that could shake the entire Central State continent. If they followed him, they would naturally have a chance of a meteoric rise. There would not be many opportunities like this in one's lifetime. If he missed this opportunity, it would be difficult for him to get another one like this in the future. Of the World Club, World Club, and Wang Mingqiao and Guzong. World. Of World Club. Of the World Club in front. World. You 2-inch you. 2-inch of the world of Chong. Gu Zhongyu and Wang Mingqiao were overjoyed. They knew what to do. "President, there have been a lot of disciples joining recently. Some of the outer sect disciples are still manageable. However, there are some inner sect disciples that we can't handle. I'm afraid that there will be a lot of talisman masters joining in the next 2 days. With senior brother Wang's and my reputation in the Manchu, I'm afraid we won't be able to handle them," Gu Zhongyu said to Du Xiaofu. His expression was worried. He didn't have much confidence. Recently, there were a lot of disciples joining World Club. They were naturally able to handle the outer sect disciples. However, some of the inner sect disciples were not ordinary. They were proud and arrogant. They even had forces supporting them. Gu Zhongyu and Wang Mingqiao knew that their reputation in the Manchu wasn't enough to handle those inner sect disciples. Moreover, once the news of World Club being able to obtain spirit-increasing powder spread, many talisman masters would join World Club. Most of the talisman masters were inner sect disciples. Although Gu Zhongyu was also a talisman master, he knew that he wouldn't be able to handle the situation. Du Xiaofu hesitated for a moment. Then, he said to the two of them, "If you can't handle them, just reject them. If you can't handle them, you can find Gu Zong. I think he should be enough to handle them." "President, I understand." Gu Zhongyu nodded. With Gu Zong around, even if the people on the alchemy roll came, he would be able to handle them. Du Xiaofu said with a smile, "I'll be in seclusion for a few days. There are some things that I need you to investigate for me. However, don't alert the enemy. Just find a few steady and smart people to do it. I'll make a decision after I come out of seclusion." After a moment, Du Xiaofu left World Pavilion. He went straight back to his nest on Heaven Eye Peak and plunged into the ancient, desolate space. In the ancient sky sect, Du Xiaofu won the Talisman League competition, and it was a grand slam. For a moment, the entire ancient sky sect was in an uproar. His name had already spread to the outside world. News began to spread from World Pavilion again. Many people were surprised and shocked that Gu Zong of the Alchemy Roll had joined the World Society. Gu Zong, who had never joined any faction, had actually joined the World Society. This was a little strange. As long as a talisman master joined the World Society, he would be able to obtain the spirit-increasing powder. In the Talisman League competition, Du Xiaofu had refined the spirit-increasing powder that could strengthen the spirit root. Elder Huang had personally verified the spirit-increasing powder, so no one had any doubts. In just a few days, many free talisman masters had begun to join the World Society. It was said that many talisman masters had begun to withdraw from their original factions and wanted to join the World Society. The spirit-increasing powder could strengthen the spirit root. This was an irresistible temptation for any talisman master. 6 days later, dusk crept in from the distant mountains. In the area of Heaven Eye Peak, a wisp of evening fog slowly rose up and curled around the peak. Whoosh whoosh! A purple-robed figure flew out of the peak and disappeared in the direction of the outer sect. World Pavilion, the place where the Manchu had been abuzz with discussion recently, was currently in an argument. "Humph, the World Society is really arrogant. We intended to join, but they only relied on an outer sect disciple. Are they looking down on us?" On the first floor of World Pavilion, a well-dressed youth had a gloomy expression. Behind him were 4 extraordinary youths of similar age. The 5 youths were all around 22 or 23 years old. From the badges on their shoulders, they were all inner sect disciples of the ancient Heaven sect. The aura emanating from their bodies could affect one's mind and soul. Furthermore, they were all talisman masters. "Senior Brother Zhou, please forgive us. The president is in seclusion. Senior Brother Hao, Senior Sister Mu, Senior Sister Qiao, and Senior Brother Imo are all in the secluded area and have yet to come out. Therefore, we can only receive Senior Brother Zhou." Gu Zhongyu said to the well-dressed youth with a respectful tone, "Just an outer sect disciple. Just because you have the World Society behind you, you think you can raise your status? You want to use Qiao Yingming, Judge Hao, and Imo One to suppress me? Who do you think you are? You don't have the right to speak in front of us." The well-dressed youth didn't put Gu Zhongyu in his eyes. As an inner sect disciple and a talisman master with a ranking on the gold roll, why would he put an outer sect disciple like Gu Zhongyu in his eyes? Senior Brother Zhou is right. The World Society doesn't put us talisman masters in their eyes at all. They actually let a small outer sect disciple send us away. Why should we join? It's fine if we don't join such a World Society. I'm afraid that the spirit-increasing powder that they can get is fake. They just want to trick talisman masters into joining the World Society. Behind the well-dressed youth, the 4 youths who followed him all agreed. Outside World Pavilion, there were already many onlookers who were whispering to each other as they watched the argument inside. "Senior Brother Zhou, you're too serious. Our World Society welcomes any talisman master to join, but the president and the other senior brothers and sisters are all in seclusion. If Senior Brother Zhou isn't willing to join the World Society, Our world society won't force you. Gu Zhangyu straightened his body, and his expression and attitude started to become unyielding. Hee. Hearing this, the well-dressed youth was stunned for a moment. Then he sneered at Gu Zhangyu. His face turned cold as he said, "What a good Gu Zhangyu. You really think you're so impressive? You're just a small outer sect disciple. Do you believe that even if I cripple you, it won't be a big deal? If senior brother Zhou wants to put on airs, then you've come to the wrong place. This is the World Pavilion. If you want to put on airs in the World Pavilion, I advise senior brother Zhou to restrain himself. Even if you cripple me, the president and the other senior brothers and sisters of the World Society are all in seclusion and can't see you." Gu Zhangyu wasn't afraid. He raised his head and puffed out his chest. If it was in the past, he would naturally be afraid. But now, he had the World Society behind him, so he wasn't afraid. He couldn't lose face for the World Society. Even if he was crippled, he couldn't lose face for the World Society. At the same time, Wang Mingqiao, Zhang Yingguan, and the rest of the World Society's disciples immediately stepped forward and stood close to Gu Zhangyu, ready for battle. "Haha, what a good outer sect disciple. You're really impressive." The well-dressed youth's gloomy face started to turn cold. He said gloomily, "Since you don't know what's good for you, then I'll fulfill your wish." Chi. As the well-dressed youth's voice fell, his expression turned cold. An extremely terrifying aura suddenly burst out from his body. His figure was like lightning. With a wave of his hand, a palm print directly shot out and slapped towards Gu Zhangyu. Boom! The World Pavilion's space shook violently. This terrifying aura had already surpassed that of a 6-star talisman master. It was far from what Gu Zhangyu, Wang Mingqiao, and the rest could contend against. The terrifying palm arrived in front of Gu Zhangyu in an instant. Chi. While everyone was still in shock, a golden energy rune beam directly pierced through space and landed on the palm print of the young man in luxurious clothes. Ding, ding. When the two collided, a dazzling brilliance exploded. Before the surrounding gazes could see clearly, they saw the well-dressed youth stagger and stumble back. Chapter 709. Ah! The young man in luxurious clothes screamed in agony. There was a finger-sized hole in his palm and blood was flowing out. "It's really lively here." A faint voice was heard and the crowd outside the World Pavilion became restless. Then, a purple-robed young man walked out. It was Du Xiaofu. "Greetings, President." Gu Zhangyu regained his senses when he saw Du Xiaofu. He felt as though he had just escaped death. He immediately bowed to Wang Mingqiao, Zhang Yingguan, and the rest and said respectfully, "Greetings, President." Du Xiaofu nodded his head in acknowledgement. His gaze slowly swept across the surroundings before finally landing on the young man in luxurious clothes who had just been injured and the 4 young men behind him. Seeing Du Xiaofu's gaze, the 5 young men's eyes trembled and they couldn't help but take 2 steps back. The World Pavilion welcomes talisman masters to join. However, if anyone wants to cause trouble, don't blame me for being impolite. Du Xiaofu looked around, and his indifferent voice echoed in everyone's ears. "Is this how you welcome me?" The young man in luxurious clothes endured the pain and sealed the acupuncture point on his hand to stop the bleeding. He gritted his teeth, and his expression was terrible. "You attacked in the World Pavilion and didn't put the World Pavilion in your eyes. Why should I welcome you? Don't you think so?" Du Xiaofu looked at the young man in luxurious clothes and said, "Humph, you think you can do whatever you want just because you're the leader of the Talisman League? I don't want to join the World Pavilion." The young man in luxurious clothes was livid. After a while, he gritted his teeth and said to the 4 people behind him, "Let's go." After he said that, the young man in luxurious clothes was about to leave. "You attacked in the World Pavilion and didn't put the World Pavilion in your eyes. I'm afraid it's impossible for you to leave so easily," Du Xiaofu said indifferently with a slight smile on his face. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the 5 people who were about to turn around suddenly stiffened. After a moment of silence, a trace of anger flashed across the youth's pale face as he said in a deep voice, "Du Xiaofu, what do you want to do? Do you dare to kill us in Manchu?" "There's no need to kill all of you." Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. His gaze was so calm that it made the five of them tremble. He said in an indifferent voice, however, "Since you guys are so presumptuous in my world pavilion, if I let you guys leave now, anyone else will be able to act presumptuously in the world pavilion in the future. Therefore, I cannot let you guys off so easily." "Oomph. You dare? Do you really think you can do whatever you want in the Munchu? I'm leaving right now. What can you do about it?" As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. "Humph." Du Xiaofu raised his eyes slightly as a cold smile appeared on the corners of his mouth. Just as the young man in luxurious clothes turned around to leave, his figure shot out like a ghost. "What do you want to do?" The young man in luxurious clothes suddenly trembled as if he had sensed something. He quickly turned around as a dazzling light enveloped him. "I'm just teaching you a lesson." An indifferent voice that contained an icy chill rang in the ears of the young man in luxurious clothes. At the same time, before the light energy around the young man in luxurious clothes could completely surge out, a palm print had already landed on his back. Bang! The muffled sound was not loud, but the body of the well-dressed young man suddenly trembled. A mouthful of blood mist was wildly spat out from his mouth. His body immediately flew forward and heavily landed on the street dozens of feet away. The fall caused the cracks on the street to continuously spread. "Run!" The expressions of the remaining four young men changed drastically. After being stunned for a moment, they regained their senses and immediately ran away. "You want to leave? Then leave." Du Xiaofu smiled faintly as he shook his purple robe sleeve. His palm directly slapped the backs of the four youths. A terrifying golden talisman rune surged out like golden lightning. Bang, 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 bang. The four figures were swept out of the world pavilion in an instant. The ferocious power contained in the golden talisman made the four of them unable to resist at all. Blood spurted from their mouths as they fell heavily beside the young man in luxurious clothes who had just landed on the ground. They were all in an incomparably miserable state. Du Xiaofu's clean and efficient attack caused everyone in the surroundings to be stunned. Probably not many would have thought that Du Xiaofu would really attack those soul talisman masters, and not lightly at that. Those five youths probably wouldn't be able to recover for at least a few months. "President, what's going on? It's so lively." A voice rang out and the crowd became restless. Soon after, everyone saw several figures slowly walking over. The one in the lead was Gu Zong of the Gold Roll. The people behind him also looked like soul talisman masters. "It's Senior Brother Gu Zong. I heard that Senior Brother Gu Zong has already joined the World Club. There's also Senior Brother Chiu Yu and Senior Brother Pai." The crowd whispered. The news of Gu Zong joining the World Club had already spread out. Du Xiaofu looked at Gu Zong and smiled. "It's not a big deal. There are a few people who don't put the World Pavilion in their eyes. I'm just teaching them a lesson." Gu Zong smiled and nodded at Du Xiaofu. He looked around and said, "Since they don't give the World Pavilion face, then they should be taught a lesson. In my opinion, this lesson is still light. I'm just afraid that they won't remember it for long." Du Xiaofu's eyes moved. Although Gu Zong looked simple and honest, he was definitely not a soft-hearted person. Du Xiaofu also understood that Gu Zong's words in front of everyone was also an opportunity to express his stance to everyone. From now on, anyone who dared to provoke the World Pavilion would be going against Gu Zong. Those who were observant would naturally understand. Du Xiaofu smiled. "Just teach them a lesson. I believe that their memory will be good." "I hope so." Gu Zong smiled and said, "President, let me introduce you. This is Junior Brother Chiu Yu, Junior Brother Pai, Junior Brother Zhang Zhe, and Junior Brother Bao Jiqiang. They all want to join the World Club and have a good relationship with me. Hence, I brought them here as a referral." "Greetings, Uncle Master Du," behind Gu Zong, for young men stood out and bowed respectfully. No need for formalities. "Welcome to the World Pavilion." Du Xiaofu nodded and smiled. He peeked at the aura of these four people. They were all 6-star talisman masters. One of them was even 6-star Nirvana realm. As soon as he finished speaking, Du Xiaofu threw a few jade bottles to Chiu Yu and the rest. He said, "This is spirit increasing powder. It can strengthen a talisman master's spiritual root. We're all brothers in the World Club. When you run out of spirit increasing powder, come and find me for more." Spirit increasing powder. This is spirit increasing powder. Xiao Yu and the rest held the spirit increasing powder in their hands. They joined the World Club mainly because of spirit increasing powder. They didn't expect to get it right after joining. Talisman masters who join the World Pavilion can really get spirit increasing powder. Some of the onlookers were envious and whispered. No one would pay attention to the talisman masters who were severely injured. After a while, on the third floor of the World Pavilion, Du Xiaofu handed a few jade bottles and a jade scroll to Guzong. He said, "This is spirit increasing powder and the refining method that you want to fuse with beast souls." "Thank you, President." Guzong nodded and accepted the spirit increasing powder and jade scroll. He didn't say much. "President, the few people who came to cause trouble today, the leader is called Zhou Lianqi. He's ranked 100th on the alchemy ranking. His major is Medicine Talisman Master, and his minor is Formation Talisman Master. I heard that he's quite close to Qiao Zhao. I'm afraid that some people purposely arranged for him to cause trouble," Gu Zhongyu said to Du Xiaofu. "President, now that you've become the leader of the Talisman League, I'm afraid that some people won't accept it. Some factions in the Manchu will definitely secretly obstruct you." "This is very normal," Guzong said. "You seem to know something?" Du Xiaofu asked Guzong. Guzong smiled bitterly and said, "There are many factions in the Ancient Sky sect. For example, the Four Seas Gang, Yunji Club, and Forgotten Dust sect can only be considered as the top factions. The true strongest faction in the Ancient Sky sect is the Guei League." The Guei League? Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. It seemed that the Ancient Sky sect was also very complicated. Guzong continued, "The Guei League is not simple. The leader is Mizixia. Many of the people on the alchemy ranking are disciples of the Guei League. They also have the most inner sect disciples. However, very few people know that there's someone behind Mizixia. The Guei League is extremely powerful and is the #1 faction in the Manchu. Most of the cultivation resources sold by the Manchu-S businesses are actually controlled by them. This Guei League is really not simple. There's someone behind Mizixia. Could it be the two people at the top of the alchemy ranking?" Du Xiaofu asked. "The only people who could be behind Mizixia were the two people at the top of the alchemy ranking. It's not the two people at the top of the alchemy ranking. The two of them are very mysterious and have never participated in the outside world." Guzong shook his head and said, "The Guei League has existed for a very, very long time. Other factions in the Manchu will eventually collapse and disappear, but the Guei League has always existed. It's said that it has existed for more than a few hundred years." For such a long time? Du Xiaofu was truly surprised and shocked. Factions formed by disciples usually dissipated when the main disciples left the Manchu. However, the Guei League was able to stay in the Ancient Heaven sect for hundreds of years. How deep were their roots? This was indeed not simple. Rumor has it that there are many protectors and elders behind the Guei League. Mizixia and some disciples are just on the surface, Guzong said in a low voice. Could it be that the Manchu doesn't care if the elders and protectors are involved? Du Xiaofu asked curiously. According to Du Xiaofu's estimation, the Ancient Heaven sect wouldn't let this continue. They definitely wouldn't ignore it. I don't know why the Manchu doesn't care. It's not good for us to ask too much about this. In short, no one can touch the Guei League in the Manchu, Guzong said with a bitter smile. Guei League, Du Xiaofu muttered softly. Then, he asked Gu Zhongyu, have you investigated the matter I asked you to investigate a few days ago? Chapter 7:10. Yes. We have people following them for the past 2 days. We know where they are and what they do every day, Gu Zhongyu said mysteriously. Du Xiaofu smiled and said, then we can sell the Berserk pill and Xian Yuan pill tomorrow. However, there are some things that need to be settled today. 2 figures walked slowly on the mountain road in the Ancient Heaven sect. One of them was tall, and the other was fat. However, both of them had extraordinary auras and looked to be around 22 or 23 years old. Why is there no news about Du Xiaofu recently? I heard that some people in the Talisman League are planning to show him who's boss. Although he won the Talisman League competition, he's new here and won't be able to convince everyone. Of course, most of the important people in the Talisman League are under senior brother Mi Zixia and senior brother Chao Zhao. Even if Du Xiaofu becomes the leader of the Talisman League, he won't be able to do anything. The two young men whispered to each other as they walked slowly. Suddenly, the two of them seemed to have sensed something at the same time. They paused and looked up. A green-robed figure appeared in their line of sight. There was a long sword wrapped in purple cloth on his back. It's Du Xiaofu. The two of them trembled when they saw the figure in front of them, who in the ancient heaven sect did not recognize the green-robed figure. I heard that the two of you almost lost your lives after consuming the Xian Yuan pill and Berserk pill. I'm here to find out what happened. Du Xiaofu looked at the two people in front of him. They were the two people he asked Gu Zhongyu and Wang Mingqiao to find out more about. Run! When the two of them heard this, they looked at each other in dismay. Their eyes trembled, and for some reason, their expressions changed greatly. After that, their figures trembled at the same time. Profound qi surged out from their bodies, and they turned around and fled. You can't escape. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. His figure flashed like lightning and appeared in front of the two people who had just rushed out. A terrifying golden light burst out and directly swept in front of the two people. Bang bang! The two young men were instantly sent flying backward. Blood spurted out from their mouths as they fell heavily on the ground. They were unable to resist at all. At dusk, the setting sun was like blood. Thousands of people suddenly gathered inside and outside the World Pavilion, causing the main streets of the outer sect to tremble. President, all the disciples that can come have arrived. Wang Mingqiao ran up to the third floor of the World Pavilion and reported to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu smiled. He turned around and said to Guzong, many talisman masters, as well as Gu Zhongyu and Zhang Yingguan, let's go down too. Some debts have to be settled. This is the first time I've participated in such a lively event since entering the ancient heaven sect. Guzong smiled. At dusk, the outer sect main street was in an uproar. Thousands of people from the world's assembly rushed towards the Four Seas Trading Company, which was a trading company opened by the Four Seas sect. What? Du Xiaofu personally led a team here? Within the Four Seas Trading Company, a quick-witted young man with a strong aura trembled. Du Xiaofu had personally led thousands of disciples from the world's assembly here. He naturally knew what was going to happen. What are you trying to do? How dare you? The Manchu won't let you off. Our Four Seas sect won't let you off either. The quick-witted young man rushed out of the Four Seas Trading Company and shouted at Du Xiaofu. However, in the face of the aura of over 1,000 disciples surrounding the Four Seas Trading Company, he could not help but tremble in fear. All he wanted to do was to find a chance to escape and inform the gang leader. I'm just seeking justice, Du Xiaofu said coldly. His figure instantly appeared in front of the quick-witted young man, and a claw landed on his shoulder like a bolt of lightning. Bang! He then threw the young man far away. Blood dripped from his mouth as he struggled to get up. Qi! Du Xiaofu smiled and put away a Qinkuan pouch into his bosom without leaving a trace. Run! Quickly run and inform the sect leader. The expressions of the dozens of young men and women behind the quick-witted young man changed as they retreated in panic. Brothers, the Four Seas sect smashed our world pavilion. Now it's time for us to take revenge. Gu Zhongyu shouted and rushed out. He pushed back a young man and directly rushed into the Four Seas Trading Company. Charge! The members of the world's assembly shouted and moved together. The dozens of disciples of the Four Seas sect immediately let out miserable wails. The members of the world's assembly, who had been bullied by the Four Seas sect, naturally did not hold back now that they had revenge. Du Xiaofu faintly smiled. His figure was like a ghost as he swept into the Four Seas Trading Company. He unceremoniously took all the medicinal pills, refining materials, elixirs, martial skills, soul weapons, and symbol weapons in the Four Seas Trading Company. When Gu Zhongyu, Wang Mingqiao, Zhang Yingguan, and the others saw their president's actions, they were all slightly startled. Then, they understood and smiled. They did not hold back and were like wolves and tigers. Gu Zong walked into the Four Seas Trading Company. When he saw the scene in front of him, he was stunned for a moment. He was almost flabbergasted. After that, Gu Zong saw that there were quite a number of refining materials beside him. He looked to his left and right and a wave of energy gushed out from his palm, directly sucking them into his Chinkuan bag. His face still had a calm and indifferent expression. The quick-witted young man who had been sent flying by Du Xiaofu had gotten up and quietly appeared at the entrance of the trading company. He was about to enter the trading company. Gu Zong's figure appeared in front of the quick-witted young man. It was unknown whether it was intentional or not, but he directly hit the young man's body. The young man's withered body was sent flying for more than 10 feet, and he really could not get up. In just a quarter of an hour, the Four Seas Trading Company was swept away. Dozens of people from the Four Seas sect on the ground screamed and wailed. The crowd of onlookers was stunned. "It's time to go to the Cloud Aspiration Trading Company," Du Xiaofu said. Then, under the personal leadership of Du Xiaofu, thousands of people from the world society rushed toward the Cloud Aspiration Trading Company. The Cloud Aspiration Trading Company was the trading company of the Cloud Society. It was slightly bigger than the Four Seas Trading Company and was enough to be ranked as one of the top 10 trading companies in the Ancient Heaven sect. What do you World Society want to do? Impudent. In a short time, dozens of people from the Cloud Aspiration Trading Company screamed again. This time, Wang Mingqiao, Zhang Yinguin, Gu Zhongyu, and the others rushed into the Cloud Aspiration Trading Company. Gu Zong's figure was not slow either. The dignified Cloud Aspiration Trading Company was swept away in less than a quarter of an hour. President. Next should be the Dust Treasure Pavilion. Gu Zhongyu smiled. The Dust Treasure Pavilion was the trading company of the Forgotten Dust sect. Set up the formation and resist the World Society. Inform the sect master. As the Four Seas Trading Company and the Cloud Aspiration Trading Company were swept away, the nearby Dust Treasure Pavilion seemed to have received the news and made preparations. Although Bai Yichen was not there, there were 3 Martial King Realm cultivators and many Martial Lord Realm cultivators. They even set up an extremely powerful combined attack formation. This was naturally not a big problem for Du Xiaofu. In addition, Gu Zong and the few 6-star Spirit Talisman Masters beside him intervened. They almost immediately disintegrated the combined attack formation. Puchi, Du Xiaofu made his move. With a sweep of the Fu Yao heaven-shaking wings, the 3 Martial King Realm cultivators were sent flying, unable to withstand a single blow. Seeing the 3 Martial King Realm experts unable to withstand a single blow, the 200-plus Forgotten Dust sect disciples who had gathered trembled. Attack! The members of the World Society, who had long been unable to endure, rushed out. Waves of profound chi surged and dazzling runes immediately joined forces to suppress them. A few 6-star Spirit Talisman Masters also made their move. The people of the Forgotten Dust sect could not resist at all. A few Martial Lord Realm cultivators also took advantage of the chaos and were heavily injured by Du Xiaofu. After that, Du Xiaofu, Gu Zhongyu, Wang Mingqiao, Zhang Yinguin, Gu Zong, and the others also took the opportunity to rush into the Forgotten Dust sect like wolves and tigers. After a while, they all came out with satisfaction. In just one evening, Du Xiaofu led the World Society disciples to sweep away the 3 trading companies, heavily injuring many of the Four Seas sect, Forgotten Dust sect, and Cloud Aspiration sect disciples. This shocked all the disciples of the Ancient Heaven sect. They finally witnessed Du Xiaofu's fierce methods. After the Talisman League competition, Du Xiaofu did not appear. Everyone guessed that perhaps Du Xiaofu had just entered the sect and was still young, so he should not make any big moves against the Four Seas sect. However, they did not expect that on this evening, Du Xiaofu would finally show his fierce side. He had no intention of letting the Four Seas sect go. The 3 trading companies were swept away one after another. After that, many trading companies that had participated in smashing the World Pavilion's vassal forces were also swept away by the World Society without mercy. Many forces started to feel fear. At this moment, some people finally saw clearly that not only was Du Xiaofu's strength terrifying, but his methods and character of seeking revenge for the slightest mistake were also not to be trifled with. This settling of accounts after an autumn's fall made people's hair stand on end. Martial Uncle Du is going to make a big move. The Four Seas sect is unlucky. The disciples of the Manchu whispered. Some forces trembled, but only the forces that had targeted the World Society were dealt with. The other forces were unharmed and were not targeted by the World Society. At night, The ancient heaven sect was in an uproar. The 3 trading companies and many small trading companies were swept away. It was said that a large amount of cultivation resources were also swept clean. I will definitely not let that Du Xiaofu go. Chang Qinghai was furious. Definitely not. Chapter 7:11. This is too much. Du Xiaofu and I cannot live under the same sky. Fei Qingming's eyes flashed coldly as he roared furiously. Bai Yichen frowned and said, "The 3 of us might not be able to do anything to Du Xiaofu. Moreover, Du Xiaofu now has Gu Zong by his side. He already has wings and is no longer the same as before. Maybe we provoked the wrong person back then and were used as chess pieces. But we can't just let it go. We were wiped out and suffered a great loss," Chang Qinghai said angrily. Chang Qinghai said angrily. His company was worth a city, yet it was swept clean. How could he tolerate that? Bai Yichen, what do you think we should do? Fei Qingming asked Bai Yichen. We can't count on the Talisman Alliance. Du Xiaofu is the leader of the Talisman Alliance now. I heard that the 2 vice leaders haven't been decided yet. We can only rely on ourselves. Bai Yichen raised his head and looked at Chang Qinghai and Fei Qingming. He said, "We can only ask the Manchu to come out and make a big deal out of this. The bigger the better. Once the Manchu comes out, it'll be beneficial for us. Someone can take the chance to suppress Du Xiaofu. I don't believe the Manchu can protect him forever. Only then can we get our revenge." "Okay, we'll listen to you." Fei Qingming nodded. "But before that, we need someone to intervene. If we can get him to help, our chances will be much higher," Bai Yichen said. Fei Qingming asked, "Who should we ask for help?" Bai Yichen smiled and said, "Chao Zhao." At night, the moon was bright and the stars were sparse. "Patriarch, there's trouble." Inside a side hall on the main peak of the ancient heaven sect, Protector Hao had a helpless expression as he spoke to Sima Taxing. That Du Xiaofu fellow really took action. I heard that he led thousands of disciples from the World Conference to sweep through more than a dozen businesses. He heavily damaged the Four Seas Gang, the Forgotten Dust sect, and some other forces from the Cloud Society. Many of them were robbed clean, and their chinku and pouches were also taken. Sima Taxing was stunned and said with a wry smile, "This brat is really fearless." Protector Hao continued, "Elder Huang and the others have studied the results of the Grand Restoration Pill and Berserker Pill. Without a specific recipe, it's hard to study it. Many elders have studied it for days and nights, but to no avail. It's hard. This is a difficult pill. Perhaps it came from an ancient recipe. How could it be so easily discovered? I was too naive." Sima Taxing shook his head with a wry smile and then asked Protector Hao, "What about the refining method of integrating beast energy? Did the elders study it?" Protector Hao still shook his head and said, "That's too difficult. The elders can't do anything about it. Many elders even want to find Du Xiaofu to teach them. That refining method is extraordinary. Then what about the spirit-increasing powder? It has a portion of the spirit-increasing powder, which is equivalent to the pill formula. We should be able to figure it out by now." That kid probably didn't expect that he would leave behind some clues and leak the formula for the spirit-increasing powder. Sima Taxing Xing said with a smile. With the amount of spiritual medicine left on the registration form and the amount of spiritual medicine used, there was a chance to find the prescription of the spirit-increasing powder after a final comparison. Spirit-increasing powder? That little bastard is too cunning. At the mention of the spirit-increasing powder, Protector Hao's face suddenly became angry for some reason. He said to Sima Taxing Star, "Elder Huang is still angry. The elixirs that kid filled in on the registration form were not complete at all. The amount used was also tampered with. He must have secretly destroyed a lot of elixirs so that we can't find out the true amount. In the end, he must have secretly added some elixirs." Elder Huang and the other elders studied it for a few days, and in the end, we discovered that the little bastard was playing tricks early on. He was guarding against us finding out the prescription for the spirit-increasing powder. That little bastard is too mean. He wasted so much of our time. Sima Taxing listened to Protector Hao's words. The smile on his face immediately disappeared. After a while, he opened his mouth and scolded, "What a little bastard. He's too hateful." The next morning, There was a sea of people outside the world pavilion of the ancient heaven sect. Today was the day that the Berserker pill and Xinyuan pill were sold again. The news that the Berserker pill and Xinyuan pill were added to the pills was not valid at all. Not many people believed it. Therefore, the sale of the Berserker pill and Xinyuan pill still attracted many disciples. There were even many inner sect disciples who flocked to buy the Xinyuan pill. However, the amount of Xinyuan pill and Berserker pill was limited. They could only be supplied to some VIP members first. The Xinyuan pill and Berserker pill, as well as many spiritual weapons and talisman weapons, were sold as scheduled. It caused a commotion in the world pavilion. The other businesses could only watch from afar. I want to buy the Berserker pill. I want the Xinyuan pill and a high-grade spiritual weapon. Everyone, please line up. The higher the level of VIP member, the higher the priority. Outside the world pavilion, there was a sea of people. The noise was boiling. Rumble. Suddenly, the ground in the distance trembled. It was getting closer and closer. Then, at the entrance of the street, there was a dense group of thousands of people. There were also many demonic beast mounts in the air with figures standing on them. Roar. The demonic beasts roared, and the sound waves swept across the sky. It's the Four Seas sect. There are also people from the Yunji Association and the Forgotten Dust sect. Senior Brother Chao Zhao, Senior Brother Chang Qing Hai, Senior Brother Fei Qingming, and Senior Brother Bai Yichen are all here. Needless to say, they are here for revenge. The crowd was in an uproar and immediately retreated. Facing the three major forces, no one dared to interfere. They did not want to be implicated. President, you guessed right. They are indeed here. On the third floor of the World Pavilion, Gu Zong seemed to have sensed something and said to Du Xiaofu with a smile, "They will naturally come. Let's go take a look." Du Xiaofu smiled and stood up. "President, our people are ready. Do you want to go all out?" Wang Mingqiao asked Du Xiaofu. "We don't have enough people in the World Pavilion. You guys don't have to interfere. Act according to the situation to avoid being taken advantage of. Just watch the show," Du Xiaofu said. Whether it was the number of people or the strength of the disciples in the world society, compared to the Four Seas gang, Yunji gang and Forgotten Dust sect, they were still much weaker. Outside the World Pavilion, there was a commotion. The Four Seas sect, Yunji Club, and Forgotten Dust sect, as well as many other small and medium-sized sects, amounting to no less than 5,000 people, had completely blocked off the long street. Chao Zhao, Chang Qing Hai, Fei Qingming, and Bai Yichen were at the front. Their faces were pale. Behind the four of them, many Martial King Realm and Martial Lord Realm cultivators stood together. With such a lineup, they could probably wipe out more than half of the small empires. If you guys want to buy the Profound Energy Pill or the Berserk Pill, please line up. Du Xiaofu walked out. Behind him were Gu Zong and several six-star talisman masters, followed by Gu Zhongyu, Wang Mingqiao, and Zhang Yingwen. Du Xiaofu, you destroyed our business and injured our people. How dare you? You must give us an explanation today. Chang Qing Hai couldn't help but shout when he saw Du Xiaofu. However, there was a deep fear in his eyes. Looks like you guys are here to cause trouble. I wonder if you guys want a civil battle or a martial battle. Du Xiaofu looked at the crowd and asked with a smile, "What about a civil battle? What about a martial battle?" Bai Yichen frowned as he looked at Du Xiaofu. He didn't know why, but when he saw the indifferent gaze in Du Xiaofu's eyes, there was a faint feeling of unease in his heart. Well said. Du Xiaofu took a step forward and waved his purple sleeve, saying, "A civil battle is a matter of reason. Whoever is reasonable wins. A martial battle is a matter of fists. Whoever's fist is bigger wins." Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Chang Qing Hai, Fei Qingming, and Bai Yichen's expressions changed slightly. The threat in his words was self-evident. Du Xiaofu, you destroyed more than a dozen businesses and injured many disciples. Do you still have a reason? Chao Zhao said with a gloomy face. Last night, Chang Qing Hai, Fei Qingming, and Bai Yichen went to find him to seek justice. They followed his lead, so he had no choice but to come. Chao Zhao was very clear that if he could seek justice for Bai Yichen and the others and suppress Du Xiaofu, then the three of them would definitely listen to his orders in the future. With the three of them and himself, There was no way the four of them wouldn't be able to suppress Du Xiaofu. No matter how powerful he was, he wouldn't be able to contend against the four of them working together. Du Xiaofu was still indifferent. He glanced at Chao Zhao and said, "Why wouldn't I have a reason? A few days ago, the Four Seas Gang, Yun Zhihui, and Forgotten Dust Sect smashed my world pavilion. I'm only seeking revenge. This reason is simple and clear. I believe anyone can understand." Hearing this, everyone's eyes trembled. This was the first time someone spoke of revenge in such a dignified manner. It actually made people speechless and unable to refute. Back then, it was your world pavilion that sold fake medicine. That's why we came to seek justice. As for what happened in the world pavilion, it was purely a misunderstanding. Some disciples probably didn't control themselves and caused a small misunderstanding. Bai Yichen looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "But even so, with your status, you actually brought 1,000 people from the World Summit to smash our trading company and heavily injure many disciples. I'm afraid that's a little too much. I'm only seeking revenge. You guys touched my world pavilion, so I swept your trading company. This is the most fair thing. How is this too much?" Du Xiaofu said with a smile. His words actually made Bai Yichen speechless. He didn't know what else to say. The other party had already spoken of revenge. What else could Bai Yichen say? Gu Zong had been looking at Du Xiaofu the entire time. When he heard Du Xiaofu's words, a look of surprise appeared on his face. Then, a slight smile appeared on his face. He felt as if he had learned a bit more about this president. Chapter 712. As for selling fake pills, Du Xiaofu's smiling face suddenly changed color. His expression suddenly became gloomy. He shook his purple robe and waved his hands slightly behind him. "Bring them in," Wang Mingqiao shouted from outside Tianxia Pavilion. Then, a few youths carried two bloodied and dispirited youths onto the stage. It was obvious that the two youths were severely injured. Their clothes were tattered and their auras were weak. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that the two of them had suffered a lot. When Bai Yichen, Fei Qingming, Chang Qinghai, and the others saw the miserable state of the two youths, their expressions changed. The two of them have already confessed that they were instigated by you to say that the Berserker pill and Xinyuan pill were fake. In reality, they didn't take the Berserker pill and Xinyuan pill. They were just spouting nonsense. I have also checked their bodies, and there are no traces of them taking the Xinyuan pill and Berserker pill. Du Xiaofu's expression darkened as he looked at Bai Yichen, Fei Qingming, Chang Qinghai, and the others. His eyes were filled with coldness. Bai Yichen, Fei Qingming, and Chang Qinghai looked at each other, and their expressions changed. If the Manchu knew about this, it would be a big deal. Humph! The two of them were tortured into confessing. How can their words be trusted? It's obvious that you tortured them into confessing, and they had no choice but to obey. Chao Zhao looked at Du Xiaofu, and the corner of his eyes twitched. His expression darkened as he said, "Don't think that you can act like a villain just because you have become the chief of the Talisman Alliance. The matter of the Berserker pill and Xinyuan pill is related to the Talisman Alliance and should be decided by the Talisman Alliance. Although you are the chief of the Talisman Alliance now, the two vice chiefs haven't been decided yet. You don't have the right to decide. Looks like you want to have a physical battle since a civil battle won't work." Du Xiaofu glanced at Chao Zhao and sneered. Suddenly, a mocking smile appeared on his face as he said, "Actually, this is purely a matter between the World Alliance and the Four Seas sect. It has nothing to do with you. Do you think I won't dare to beat you up? If we weren't in the Ancient Heaven sect, I would have already taught you a lesson." Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Chao Zhao suddenly froze, his face turning green and red. Since when had anyone dared to treat him like this, to taunt him like this, to not put him in their eyes? In just a short moment, Chao Zhao's face turned extremely gloomy. His fists were clenched so tightly that his knuckles creaked. A strong chill surged out of his body. Sensing Chao Zhao's aura, Bai Yichen's eyes flickered. He signaled Chang Qinghai and Fei Qingming with his eyes, and the three of them moved simultaneously. Looks like they're really going to have a physical battle. That's good. That's what I want. Du Xiaofu said softly. His deep eyes suddenly surged with a faint gold color. "President, if I go all out, I can hold one of them. Two of the four talisman masters are talisman masters. I can't do anything, but I should be able to trap one of them. The remaining 2 leaders and many Martial King realm cultivators are strong. Gu Zong stepped forward. A faint aura came out of his body. His eyes flickered. I'm afraid it won't go as we wish. Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows. He glanced at Qiao Zhao and the others and said, but it's enough. You can deal with one of them. Don't worry about the rest. Leave the rest to me. You guys take care. Okay. Gu Zong nodded. Suddenly, the aura of a complete 6-star talisman master surged out. Although it was said that talisman masters had the lowest combat strength among talisman masters, it didn't mean that talisman masters had no combat strength. Gu Zong, who was ranked on the gold list, was definitely not to be trifled with. Boom! As Gu Zong's aura surged, the 4 6-star talisman masters behind him also stepped forward. Their auras surged together, and they were ready to fight together. Junior Brother Chong will deal with Gu Zong. The rest will be dealt with by the others. Junior Brother Fei, Junior Brother Bai, let's take down Du Xiaofu together. Looking at Gu Zong and the others behind Du Xiaofu, Qiao Zhao said to Bai Yiqin and the others beside him. As soon as he finished speaking, the aura of a 6-star talisman master surged out, but it was obviously stronger and sharper than Gu Zong's. Okay, Bai Yiqin, Fei Qingming, and Chang Qinghai nodded. Their auras suddenly surged at the same time. Rumble. Behind Bai Yiqin and the others, many Martial King realm cultivators also surged their auras and stepped forward. Roar. In the air, many extremely powerful demonic beasts roared. The aura of the entire space suddenly froze. A great battle was about to happen. They're going to fight. Retreat. Martial Uncle Du, Senior Brother Qiao Zhao, and Senior Brother Bai Yiqin are fighting. I'm afraid this area will be razed to the ground. Retreat quickly. In the tense atmosphere and frozen space, the surrounding disciples' faces changed and they immediately began to retreat quickly. Oh no, I'm afraid this place is going to be razed to the ground. The people in the nearby shops were shocked. They hurriedly packed up their things and hurriedly retreated. Everyone knew that with the strength of Du Xiaofu, Qiao Zhao, and the others, once they fought, the surrounding land that was not protected by the talisman array would be razed to the ground. Du Xiaofu looked at Qiao Zhao and the others. There was no longer a smile on his resolute face. Golden light flickered in his eyes, and a domineering aura gushed out. His purple robe fluttered loudly. Attack! Suddenly, Du Xiaofu's figure rushed out and took the lead. Golden light surged out, causing the surrounding void to tremble. Let's join forces. Qiao Zhao shouted and rushed out at the same time. His figure was like an afterimage as he pounced on Du Xiaofu. Whoosh whoosh. Space trembled as Bai Yiqin and Fei Qingming moved at the same time. Their profound energy surged as they surrounded Du Xiaofu. Boom. Chang Qinghai attacked and Gu Zong rushed out at the same time. Their targets were each other. Swish. At that moment, there were a total of 20 Martial King realm cultivators behind Bai Yiqin and the others. Among them, there were no less than 3 Martial King realm cultivators at the Nirvana realm. They pounced on the 6-star talisman masters behind Gu Zong. Swish. Golden light bloomed like the sun, and a domineering aura swept across the sky. A pair of golden talisman wings stretched out from Du Xiaofu's back. Majestic light filled the air, and the golden talisman wings flapped. Du Xiaofu was like a golden-winged rock descending. With the flapping of his wings, he was like a rock soaring into the sky. With an unbelievable arc and speed, he avoided the siege of Qiao Zhao and the other 2. Sky-shaking wings. Stormy waves palm. A low shout came out from Du Xiaofu's mouth. Golden talisman inscriptions in his hand surged out like lightning and thunder, turning into a golden wave with a terrifying aura. Rumble. Du Xiaofu didn't seem to hold back at all. He directly swept towards the Martial King realm cultivators who were attacking the 6-star talisman masters of the world society. His domineering aura swept across the army and destroyed everything in its path. Bang, bang, bang. Du Xiaofu attacked with all his might without holding back. In an instant, 6 to 7 Martial King realm cultivators were sent flying. The surrounding shops and streets collapsed one after another. The ground shook and gravel flew into the sky. Get lost. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings, and the golden talisman wings burst out with a dazzling golden light. He attacked with all his might and swept across the space like a peerless, ferocious beast. Swish, swish, swish. Waves of golden light gushed out, and the golden energy waves connected. A few Martial King realm cultivators were sent flying with blood spurting out of their mouths. A few Martial King realm cultivators at the Nirvana realm saw that the situation was not good and immediately fled. Where do you think you're going? Du Xiaofu locked onto those few strongest Martial King realm cultivators. How could he let them escape? He directly activated the golden talisman wings and had no intention of letting those few strongest Martial King realm cultivators go. Heavenly net. Du Xiaofu was already prepared. He threw out the heavenly net in his hand at those few Martial King realm cultivators who were retreating. The dazzling talisman engravings connected and the aura surged forward. Rumble. In a terrifying aura that caused the space to tremble, the heavenly net turned into a giant net that covered the sky and the earth in an instant and enveloped the 6 Martial King realm cultivators. Be careful, it's the middle-grade Taoist weapon, heavenly net. Those few Martial King realm cultivators at the Nirvana realm activated the high-grade talisman weapons on them. One of them even had a beginner-grade Taoist weapon. However, he was still one step slower and was already bound by the heavenly net. Bang bang. In a short moment, Changqing Hai and Guzong were already engaged in a fierce battle. In the low sound of energy colliding, the shops and courtyards around the street were destroyed and the streets collapsed one after another. Du Xiaofu, I'm not done with you. Chao Zhao yelled and finally arrived behind Du Xiaofu. He condensed his hand seals and the dazzling talisman engravings gathered to form a giant white python shadow that looked like a living creature. Hiss, hiss. The giant white python shadow roared and emitted a terrifying aura. Its scarlet eyes and blood-red tongue made one's heart tremble as it pounced towards Du Xiaofu. Break! Du Xiaofu yelled and a claw print swept out from his hand. It was filled with the domineering will of the golden-winged rock. He activated the rock's chaos-crushing claw and instantly tore the giant white python shadow into pieces. Sky Dust Tyrant Fist. Bai Yichen rushed over and formed a joint attack with Chao Zhao. His body was glowing with radiance, and a domineering fist print was condensed. In front of the fist, there were talisman engravings wrapped around it, causing the fist to look sparkling and dazzling as it blasted towards Du Xiaofu. Boom! Powerful energy ripples spread out from the frightening fist, causing the entire space to tremble violently. Ayo! A dragon roar sounded from Du Xiaofu's mouth like the roar of a divine elephant. In this instant, the earth rumbled and space trembled violently. A domineering aura surged and the talisman engravings released ripples as they condensed into a fist with lightning-like speed. Buzz! Du Xiaofu's fist swung out. A low Sanskrit sound rang out as it cut through the air. In a flash, it violently collided with the former's fist. A thunderous, muffled sound of energy immediately resounded across the area. Chapter 713. Rumble. In an instant, a terrifying energy ripple swept out like a stormy sea. The terrifying aura caused the surrounding ancient sky sect's disciples to feel their scalps go numb. The two of them were so powerful that it made their hearts tremble. Dang dang, Du Xiaofu and Bai Yichen's figures were pushed back at the same time, as if they were evenly matched. This was enough to show Bai Yichen's strength and also prove that Du Xiaofu was not ordinary. Brat, do you really think that you can fight against the three of us? Fei Qingming shouted. His figure appeared out of nowhere, and a dazzling palm print slammed towards Du Xiaofu's chest. In the past, Fei Qingming, Bai Yichen, and Chang Qinghai did not dare to attack Du Xiaofu together. However, things were different now. The three of them were very clear that none of them could do anything to Du Xiaofu if they were to fight him alone. If they wanted Du Xiaofu to pay the price, they could only join hands. There was no other way. Boom! The terrifying palm print instantly appeared in front of Du Xiaofu. It was as fast as lightning, but it was actually monstrous. Bang! While many people were trembling in fear, the palm print slammed into Du Xiaofu's chest under Fei Qingming's smiling gaze. The golden halo burst out with dazzling runes. "You're not strong enough." In a flash, Du Xiaofu's face showed no fear. Instead, he smiled. However, this smile contained a hint of cruelty. With a wave of his purple robe, Du Xiaofu raised his hand. A whirlpool suddenly surged. There seemed to be mysterious runes surging. His 5 fingers clenched into a fist, and a terrifying aura erupted from his fist. In an instant, Du Xiaofu's fist print was like a bolt of lightning. It carried the power of thunder and struck Fei Qingming's chest. Bang! In an instant, a fist slammed into Fei Qingming's chest, and a muffled sound rang out. One palm for one punch. This was Du Xiaofu taking a risk on purpose. Walala! Then, everyone saw that there were 13 layers of energy waves in Du Xiaofu's fist. Like a shockwave, they destroyed Fei Qingming's protective qi. Puchi! Under many shocked gazes, Fei Qingming spat out a large mouthful of blood, accompanied by the sound of bones breaking in his chest. Poor Fei Qingming was also sent flying and landed on his, but on the street dozens of feet away. PFFF, Du Xiaofu was also bleeding from the corner of his mouth. He staggered back a few steps, but he was in a much better condition than Fei Qingming. With one move, Fei Qingming was seriously injured. Everyone gasped in disbelief. No one knew that although Du Xiaofu's cultivation was far inferior to Fei Qingming's, the strength of his body was so terrifying that even 10 Fei Qingmings couldn't compare to it. If it was a real battle, Fei Qingming might have been a dead man. Now that they were in the ancient heaven sect, Du Xiaofu had no choice but to be cautious. Of course, Du Xiaofu knew that the two of them hadn't reached the point of life and death. Otherwise, even in the ancient heaven sect, with Du Xiaofu's temper, he wouldn't have held back. Heavenly Stellar Soul Suppression Array. Qiao Zhao shouted loudly. 24 array flags condensed in his hand. Those were the perfect 6-star array talisman arrays that he was about to set up. As energy poured in, Qiao Zhao's face turned pale. However, there was a sneer on his face. He had successfully bought time to set up his array. Qiao Zhao was ranked in the top 10 of the gold roll. He was ranked higher than Bai Yichen. How could he be a simple alchemy talisman master? He was also a talisman master, an extremely powerful one. If it weren't for his senior brother, Mi Zixia, participating in the talisman master competition, he would have participated. Whoosh whoosh, 24 formation flags flew out at a terrifying speed and immediately wrapped around Du Xiaofu. Then, a terrifying and fierce talisman formation appeared. Rumble. When the perfect 6-star array appeared, the wind blew and the clouds surged. The earth shook and the mountains shook. The terrifying aura emitted an extremely shocking fluctuation. It was frightening. Oh no, Martial Uncle Du is trapped by a perfect 6-star array. That's the Heavenly Stellar Soul Suppression Array. It's an offensive array. Although Martial Uncle Du is extremely skilled in talisman arrays and is the champion of the Talisman Alliance Talisman Array competition, it won't be easy for him to break this offensive array in such a short time. The surrounding people were worried. The disciples of the World Society trembled. A perfect 6-star array was a terrifying existence. Even a martial royal realm cultivator could be trapped in it. TSK, Qiao Zhao sneered. Inside his talisman array, everything was under his control. It would not be easy to break the array. Crash! At this moment, a golden brilliance rushed out from the terrifying array. It was like the phantom of a 5-fingered mountain. There were golden talisman runes flickering on the golden brilliance. There was a strange energy that seemed to be able to distort the void. Whoosh! Within a short period of time, a purple-robed figure suddenly appeared in front of the pale-faced Qiao Zhao like a bolt of lightning from the dazzling golden 5-finger mountain illusionary figure. It was Du Xiaofu, who had just been trapped by the symbol array. How could this be? This is impossible. Qiao Zhao's sneer suddenly disappeared. Everything was beyond his imagination. He was so shocked that he didn't know what was going on. Oh no! A sense of uneasiness crawled out from the depths of Qiao Zhao's soul. He wanted to retreat quickly. Whoosh! However, it was too late. A dazzling azure gold light burst out and appeared in front of Qiao Zhao. Qiao Zhao was shocked. However, he was a perfect 6-star talisman master after all. He was also one of the top 10 experts on the ancient heaven sect's gold roll. In a panic, A talisman rune burst out from his body. He was about to make a move. Mysterious soul eye. However, it was also at this moment that a dazzling light of runes shot out from Du Xiaofu's eyes, directly enveloping Cao Zhao. Cao Zhao's gaze instantly turned sluggish, and the runes he had condensed dissipated directly. Swish! The azure gold light burst out and turned into a sword radiance. It slashed across Cao Zhao's left arm. Crack, crack. On the ground below, a long gully extended into the distance. Gravel shot out, and the earth shook. The azure gold talisman runes eroded everything. It was overbearing. Cao Zhao's left arm was cut off. Ah! Cao Zhao came back to his senses and let out a miserable cry. His broken arm was dripping with blood. Even the blood from his mouth spilled into the sky. Whoosh! Cao Zhao let out a shrill cry. The terrifying fluctuation of the talisman formation that covered the sky faintly started to shake, and then under the shocked gazes of many people, the terrifying talisman formation directly exploded. Rumble! The violent energy swept across the sky, causing the space to tremble violently. It was as if the sky and the earth were falling apart. Countless talisman runes collapsed. The momentum was terrifying. Oh my God! Senior brother Cao Zhao's left arm was cut off? A perfect 6-star talisman array can't trap Martial Uncle Du. All the Manchu disciples in the distance were shocked and dumbfounded. No one expected Du Xiaofu to break a perfect 6-star talisman array in the blink of an eye. He even cut off Cao Zhao's arm. Du Xiaofu stood in the air with the tyrannical shadow in his hand. The golden talisman wings on his back flapped. How domineering was he? Qi. Bai Yichen stood to the side. When he saw Du Xiaofu break out of the array and cut off Cao Zhao's arm in an instant, his eyes trembled. He was actually a little sluggish. Fei Qingming was seriously injured, and Cao Zhao had lost an arm. A perfect 6-star talisman array couldn't trap Du Xiaofu. Bai Yichen didn't dare to act rashly. He knew that he couldn't do anything to Du Xiaofu alone. Ah! Cao Zhao screamed and quickly sealed his acupoints to stop the blood from spurting out. His face was as pale as ash. He stared at Du Xiaofu with hatred, but he didn't know what else to do. Under such an unforeseen event, there was a faint feeling of silence in the surroundings. This scene appeared too quickly. Before everyone could recover from their shock, they saw the great change in the battle situation. Cao Zhao was already seriously injured. The remaining Bai Yichen probably didn't have any chance to resist Du Xiaofu anymore. Du Xiaofu floated in the air, the golden talisman wings flapping. A domineering aura that suppressed everything spread out. He stared coldly at Cao Zhao and said, "What are you? You can't even withstand a single blow. If you have the ability, continue to attack. Let's see if I dare to destroy you." Cao Zhao trembled, his face as pale as ash. His eyes were filled with hatred, but he really didn't dare to move forward. Under that domineering aura, his heart was trembling. "Bai Yichen, what about you?" Du Xiaofu looked at Bai Yichen and shouted. His body erupted with golden light. How domineering was that? Bai Yichen didn't speak. He stepped back slightly, his heart trembling. At this time, Bai Yichen realized that he had underestimated the purple-robed youth in front of him. This guy couldn't be understood by common sense. Sometimes, the rules of the Manchu didn't work in front of him. Du Xiaofu didn't care about Bai Yichen anymore. He took a step forward and headed towards the few Martial King realm cultivators who were still suppressed by the nets of heaven. There were a total of 6 Martial King realm cultivators. 6 of them activated their talisman weapons, and one of them even activated a primary grade Taoist weapon to resist the nets of heaven. Although these 6 Martial King realm cultivators weren't completely restrained by the nets of heaven, they couldn't escape. Their faces were very pale. "Do you really think that I can be provoked by you? Since you're here, then pay the price." Du Xiaofu shouted coldly. His figure appeared under the nets of heaven like a ghost. He activated the tyrant shadow, agile like a flying dragon, soaring into the sky and domineering like a rock shaking the sky. Swoosh! Du Xiaofu swept out with his sword. The space trembled and golden light filled the sky. Ah! The arm of a suppressed Martial King realm cultivator who was holding a primary grade Taoist weapon was cut off from the shoulder. "Provoking me? Do you really think that my temper is small?" Du Xiaofu attacked again, and the sword light in his hand swept out again. I also have a temper. Du Xiaofu slashed out with his sword again. The sword light filled the sky, and the scene was terrifying. With 6 consecutive slashes, the 6 arms of the 6 martial king realm cultivators that were holding weapons were cut off. 4th update. Chapter 7:14. Blood-curdling screams filled the air as fresh blood splattered on the streets below. Du Xiaofu's 6 sword strikes were executed without any delay. All the spectators below watched in horror. Du Xiaofu's strength made them tremble in fear. His ferocious attacks today were beyond the imagination of the ancient Sky Sect's disciples. No one had expected Du Xiaofu to severely injure so many Martial King realm experts. His attacks were so ferocious that several Martial King realm experts were killed. Who else dares to make a move? Du Xiaofu stood with his sword in hand as he shouted. His body was surrounded by a golden light as if he was the sun. His aura was terrifying. The surrounding disciples of the 3 major forces trembled in fear as chills ran down their spines. They looked at the purple-robed young man in the sky. Who would dare to provoke that young man? If it weren't for Bai Yichen and the others, they would have fled long ago. Du Xiaofu, you've gone too far. I'll report this to the elders. They won't let you go. The Manchu won't let you go either. Chang Qinghai, who was fighting with Gu Zong, shouted. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared at Du Xiaofu. However, he couldn't help but focus on dealing with Gu Zong's attacks. Du Xiaofu sneered. He leaped out and pounced towards Chang Qinghai. He slashed at Chang Qinghai with his sword. Whoosh! The golden sword radiance shot towards Chang Qinghai along with wind and thunder. Chang Qinghai's expression changed. Although he had the upper hand in dealing with Gu Zong, it wasn't easy for him to deal with Gu Zong. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's sword slashed towards him. Chang Qinghai immediately dodged in panic. He used a lot of techniques and finally managed to avoid Du Xiaofu's attack. When Bai Yichen saw Du Xiaofu pouncing towards Chang Qinghai, his expression became serious. However, he gritted his teeth and didn't show any signs of attacking. Du Xiaofu, I'm not done with you. Suddenly, a streak of lightning-like light shot out of nowhere, radiating with an extremely terrifying presence. It was extremely abrupt as it pressed towards Du Xiaofu with lightning-like speed. It was a fist-sized pearl. It was crystal clear and blue. It was like a stream of water as Du Xiaofu's about Du Xiaofu. It was Xiaofu Yichen. Roar. At the same time, a dragon's roar. A dragon's roar. The dragon's shadow appeared in the sky. It was a dragon's. The grade and power of that light ball was definitely not below Du Xiaofu's heavenly net. See Dragon's Dragon. Is Senior's Chang's Dragon Senior Chong Cha, Dragon Senior Chong Chong. Someone in the crowd exclaimed. They didn't expect Chang Qinghai to secretly activate the treasure on him. Looking at the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl rushing over, Du Xiaofu was extremely calm despite its terrifying aura. The tyrannical shadow in his hand suddenly disappeared. Wong. Then, a golden fan appeared in front of Du Xiaofu in his palm. The golden cattail leaf fan appeared, its overbearing and sharp-spirited curvature seeming like it was formed by nature. Layer upon layer of golden feathers, its appearance was fierce and domineering. It was wrapped in mysterious runes like the golden wings of a great pong, causing one to feel a rush of excitement just by looking at it. As the golden fan appeared, golden light flashed and spread. A vast and domineering aura swept out, causing the surrounding space to tremble. Boom! In an instant, golden light shot out in all directions high up in the sky. A terrifying aura swept out in all directions. Du Xiaofu swept out with his fan as the dazzling azure ball of light flew over. Hula! As the fan swept out, golden runes flickered in the golden light. It was as if a golden-winged rock had spread its wings and soared up. What a terrifying aura! Even my meridian soul is being suppressed. This is the aura of the rock. Is that treasure related to Martial Uncle Du's rock? High-grade Tao artifact. This must be a high-grade Tao artifact. This domineering and terrifying power caused the hearts of the surrounding disciples to tremble. Even their meridian souls were affected. Rumble. The golden runes flickered, and the golden light was dazzling. It was as if countless golden lightning bolts were flashing. In the end, they arranged themselves in the sky. A golden-winged rock appeared, looking down at the world. It flapped its wings and covered the sky, suppressing the world. At this moment, the dragon shadow on the sea suppressing dragon soul pearl seemed to have seen its nemesis. It trembled and was shattered by the fan. Hula! The dragon shadow dissipated and turned into runes. Then, the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl fell from the sky and lost its original luster. Take. As he spoke, Du Xiaofu took Chang Qinghai's sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl. Pucci. It seemed that under the influence of the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl, Chang Qinghai, who was fighting fiercely with Gu Zong, suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Du Xiaofu, what are you doing? Give me back my sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl. Chang Qinghai shouted and used all his strength to push Gu Zong back. He definitely could not lose the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl. His figure immediately pounced towards Du Xiaofu. Profound Soul Eye. Just as Chang Qinghai pounced, Du Xiaofu once again activated the Profound Soul Eye. The dazzling light of the runes enveloped the panicked Chang Qinghai, causing his eyes to suddenly lose focus. Hula! Du Xiaofu didn't delay in the slightest as the skyquake fan in his hand swept out once more, and the silhouette of a golden-winged rock flashed out as if it covered the sky and covered the sun. It swept through the sky while carrying a golden light that shot into the sky, and it seemed to have pierced through the sky as it fiercely smashed onto Chang Qinghai, who had just returned to his senses. Pucci. Chang Qinghai spat out a mouthful of blood and his body directly smashed into the messy street. The impact caused many shops to crack and rocks to explode, turning into fine powder and then into gravel on the ground. Du Xiaofu rushed over, the golden rune wings on his back flashing. He swooped down like a rock, the sea-suppressing dragon soul pearl and the Fuyao heaven-shaking fan in his hands disappeared. Boom! Du Xiaofu's figure landed beside Chang Qinghai, who had just smashed into the ground. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth and his face was pale, but his eyes flickered with a golden light. A claw print that was like a rock's claw directly grabbed Chang Qinghai's shoulder. Gotcha! Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, countless eyes were filled with shock. Du Xiaofu's sharp claw print landed on Chang Qinghai's shoulder, and with a destructive force, directly tore off Chang Qinghai's right arm from the shoulder. Walala! As blood splattered, Du Xiaofu's purple robe was dyed red with blood. Ah! Chang Qinghai screamed miserably. That wail of pain caused everyone who heard it to feel their hair stand on end and their scalps go numb. The entire square was silent, and the eyes of all the onlookers trembled. He directly tore off Chang Qinghai's arm, causing blood to splatter everywhere. How fierce and bloody was this? How fierce and overbearing was this? Although the disciples of the ancient heaven sect competed every day, and the competition was extremely fierce and cruel, no one had ever seen such a brutal scene. Qi. Du Xiaofu threw Chang Qinghai's severed arm into the distance. His eyes flickered with a golden light, and his face revealed a cold smile. Coupled with the fact that his body was drenched in blood, he looked even more fierce. Who dares to make a move? Du Xiaofu shouted loudly and stood proudly. His overbearing aura swept out. Retreat, quickly retreat. The last few Martial King realm cultivators who were fighting with the 4 6-star talisman masters of the world society did not dare to make a move after seeing this scene. They all shouted and quickly retreated. No one dared to believe that Du Xiaofu would be so fierce when dealing with Chang Qinghai, Cao Zhao, and the others. He was like a peerless, fierce beast. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Everyone was so shocked that they found it hard to accept the fact. Those were 4 experts who were ranked in the top 10 of the alchemy roll. Now, 3 of them had ended up like this. Retreat, quickly retreat. Bai Yiqin was also shocked. Du Xiaofu had cut off Cao Zhao's arm and tore off Chang Qinghai's arm. This made him feel a lingering fear. There was nothing that the purple-robed young man did not dare to do. Following Bai Yiqin's words, the thousands of people immediately began to retreat. Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, and the other trusted aides gathered their courage and fearfully supported Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, Chao Zhao, and the others down. Get lost. All of you get lost. If you don't get lost, I'll teach you a lesson. All the disciples of the World Society recovered from their shock and immediately shouted loudly. They taunted the thousands of people from the 3 superpowers who were retreating. Too powerful. The surrounding onlookers were so shocked that they could not recover for a long time. That purple-robed young man was so terrifying. Everyone knew that this time, Chao Zhao, Chang Qinghai, and the others had really bumped into an iron plate. There were more than 10 forces led by the 3 great forces. There were more than 5,000 disciples in total. They came quickly and left quickly as well. One by one, they fled, not daring to stay. This time, they were truly afraid. President, are you all right? Gu Zong came to Du Xiaofu's side and his eyes trembled slightly. He was secretly shocked. I'm fine, just a small injury. Du Xiaofu wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve, and a smile appeared on his face. Chang Qinghai, Chao Zhao's injuries are more serious. I'm afraid that the people behind them will definitely come out. You'll be in some trouble, and the trouble might not be small. You have to be prepared. Gu Zong reminded Du Xiaofu. He looked at the large number of buildings and courtyards that were razed to the ground and sighed inwardly. Du Xiaofu slightly raised his head and slightly frowned. Then, he smiled and said, I'll make arrangements. Just wait for them to come. President, do you want to take some healing elixirs? You're injured. Several 6-star talisman masters came forward. They could only admire Du Xiaofu in front of them. In the battle just now, their president was so powerful and domineering. No, I can't take any healing elixirs yet. Du Xiaofu smiled and asked the 4 people, Are you all right? We're fine. It's no big deal. A young man said with a smile on his pale face. They were sincerely convinced by the purple-robed young man in front of them. He had single-handedly crippled several fellows in the top 10 of the alchemy list. How fierce was that? Chapter 7:15. Guild Leader, are you all right? Gu Zhangyu, Wang Mingqiao, Zhang Yingguan, and many others gathered around. It's nothing serious. I have to go and do something. It might take a long time. You guys take care of Tianxia Pavilion. Du Xiaofu said to Gu Zhangyu, Gu Zong, Wang Mingqiao, and the others. Guild Leader, what should we do now? Gu Zhangyu was in a difficult position. The surrounding streets and shops had been razed to the ground and turned into ruins. Tianxia Pavilion wasn't spared either. In the end, it was also razed to the ground by the terrifying energy. Luckily, all the cultivation resources had been collected early on. Continue to sell the cultivation resources that should be sold. Do whatever you need to do. I'll take my leave first. Du Xiaofu said to Gu Zhangyu and the others. As soon as he finished speaking, he flew into the air and left. Looking at Du Xiaofu's back, Gu Zhangyu and the others were stunned. They could only smile bitterly. A moment later, a strange scene appeared on top of a pile of rubble on the messy street. Gu Zhangyu actually placed 2 long tables on the rubble and continued to sell cultivation resources. He sold the Xinyuan pills and Berserk pills that he hadn't sold out yet. As for the lively scene, it was still a sea of people, and people were rushing to buy things. It did not seem like there had been an astonishing battle earlier at all. Swoosh! Du Xiaofu flew into the air and turned into a rainbow as he flew towards Tianmu Peak. On the main peak of Tianmu Peak, Du Xiaofu landed in front of the courtyard and saw his 3rd senior brother Yuanli. Junior brother, what happened to you? Seeing Du Xiaofu covered in blood, Yuanli was shocked. Not to mention that this was his junior brother. If anything happened to him, even his master wouldn't forgive him. I got into some trouble. Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, Bai Yichen, and Chao Zhao brought more than 5,000 disciples to attack me. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. He knew that there would be some trouble this time. To be on the safe side, since his master was not around, he could only look for his 3rd senior brother. Damn bastards, the 4 of them brought over 5,000 disciples to surround. Hearing this, even Yuanli, who had always been rather indifferent, jumped up and cursed. 4 experts in the top 10 of the alchemy leaderboard leading over 5,000 disciples to surround and attack his junior brother. This made Yuanli unable to remain calm any longer. Senior brother, You don't have to worry. I didn't suffer any losses. It's just a small injury. They are much worse off than me. Du Xiaofu chuckled. He naturally knew how miserable the other party was. In comparison, he didn't suffer much. Du Xiaofu was only slightly injured after forcefully resisting Fei Qingming's attack, but it wasn't too serious. I didn't lose out. Yu Wanli was stunned. The worried expression on his face immediately turned into a smile. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "It's good that you didn't lose out. It's fine as long as you didn't lose out. But I'm afraid there will be some trouble this time, so I came to ask third senior brother for advice." Du Xiaofu said. He then explained the general situation to third senior brother Yu Wanli. There was nothing to hide in front of third senior brother. However, when Yu Wanli finished listening to Du Xiaofu's explanation, he was also dumbfounded. The expression in his eyes changed as he looked at Du Xiaofu. "You are really ruthless. You even raised a few of the outer sect's business streets to the ground." In the end, Yu Wanli could only smile bitterly. Then he raised his eyebrows and said, "But it's better for others to suffer than to suffer a loss. I'm afraid that we'll have to discuss this matter properly." The people behind Qiao Zhao are not simple. There are many elders behind him. Chang Qinghai, Bai Yiqin, and Fei Qingming also have elders behind them. Plus, you became the chief of the Talisman League a few days ago. They won't let this matter go. We are somewhat outnumbered. Yu Wanli's expression became serious. "Third senior brother, when will Master come back?" Du Xiaofu asked. If Master was here, given his status in the Manchu, there wouldn't be any big problem. Master and some elders went out to do something. It's said that they are looking for something. I don't know when they will come back. Yu Wanli pondered for a while. Then he looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "We are outnumbered, so we can only gain the initiative by striking first?" "How can we gain the initiative by striking first?" Du Xiaofu asked. Then he seemed to have thought of something and said, "Third senior brother, you were talking about the sect master, right?" "That's right." Yu Wanli nodded and said, "They won't let this matter go, but they will probably go to the sect master. They are outnumbered, so we can only strike first." "Hee, I'll listen to third senior brother." Du Xiaofu understood. Third senior brother's words sounded nice. To put it bluntly, he was just going to complain first. He would gain a lot of advantages. "It's not enough for you to go like this. You need to dress up." Yu Wanli looked at Du Xiaofu carefully for a while, then smiled. He took Du Xiaofu's blood-stained purple robe and tore it into a ragged piece. Finally, he wiped the blood-stained purple robe on Du Xiaofu's face a few times. Du Xiaofu's face was stained with blood, and his clothes were in tatters. He looked miserable. "That's about it. Remember, when you go to the sect master, you have to insist that you are the victim. Act as pitiful as you can. As for the rest, act according to the circumstances." Yu Wanli looked at Du Xiaofu's appearance that he had modified, and was very satisfied. Finally, he reminded Du Xiaofu of some things he should pay attention to. At this time, Du Xiaofu was speechless. He thought that third senior brother was kind and honest. But now, Du Xiaofu finally understood what it meant to hide one's strength. Third senior brother was simply a high-level spy. This third senior brother looked honest and dutiful. If anyone were to provoke this seemingly honest third senior brother, they would definitely not have a good ending. Soon after, in the main hall of the ancient heaven sect's main peak, "Junior brother sect leader, you have to seek justice for junior brother Xiaofu. Look at how badly he's been injured. It's too miserable. He was besieged by more than 5,000 disciples. This is simply too presumptuous. He has disregarded the sect rules. He must be severely punished, absolutely severely punished." In the main hall, Yu Wanli's face was full of grievances as if he was the one who was besieged. His voice made people feel aggrieved. This is a high-level outfit. Sure enough, the older the ginger, the spicier it is. Looking at third senior brother Yu Wanli's aggrieved appearance, Du Xiaofu could only sigh in his heart. He secretly admired third senior brother Yu Wanli from the bottom of his heart. This, Sima taking Xing looked at the bloody Du Xiaofu in front of him and was also stunned. Based on his intuition, Sima taking Xing naturally had doubts. However, when he heard that it was Qiao Zhao, Bai Yiqin, Fei Qingming, and Chang Qinghai, who had joined forces with more than 5,000 disciples, and Du Xiaofu's bloody appearance, Sima Taxing Star had no choice but to believe half of it. What the hell is going on? Sima Taking Xing handed a healing pill to Du Xiaofu and then asked Du Xiaofu. Based on Sima Taking Xing's understanding of Du Xiaofu, who was as shrewd as a thief, should not be someone who would suffer such a big loss. Du Xiaofu then told him about the matter, from the Four Seas gang accusing the World Pavilion of selling fake medicine and finally smashing the World Pavilion. He also took revenge last night and smashed several of their shops. Today, Chang Qinghai and the other three brought at least 5,000 disciples to take revenge. Du Xiaofu did not hide anything about this matter. It was all true. However, under Du Xiaofu's intentional embellishment, he almost became a pure victim. In addition, Yu Wanli had been helping him. These two brothers echoed each other, and their narration was flawless. Sima Taking Xing had some doubts about Du Xiaofu, but at this time, he could not find any doubts. If he had not been secretly tricked by Du Xiaofu recently, he would have absolutely believed in Du Xiaofu. But even so, at this time, Sima Taking Xing was 80% convinced. Sect Master, something big has happened. At this time, Protector Hao hurriedly ran into the hall. When Protector Hao saw that Du Xiaofu was covered in blood and had an aggrieved expression on his face, he was stunned for a moment. Seeing Protector Hao, Sima Taking Xing asked, "Protector Hao, why are you in such a hurry?" 12 elders came and said it has something to do with Du Xiaofu. I just heard that Du Xiaofu, the champion of this year's Talisman League tournament, not long ago, seriously injured Chang Qinghai, Fei Qingming, Chao Zhao, and the others. Protector Hao's voice fell, and he added, seriously injured, at the end. Hearing this, Sima Taking Xing immediately frowned. He had long suspected that the matter was not as Du Xiaofu said. Sect Master, this is defying the heavens. This is too presumptuous. He must be severely punished. Otherwise, it won't be enough to convince the public. Following Protector Hao's words, a few angry voices could be heard from outside the hall, and many more figures walked in. At the front were many old men and middle-aged men. Judging from the badges on their shoulders, they were the elders of the ancient Heaven sect. However, these elders seemed to be unfamiliar and did not often show up in the Manchu. Behind these elders, there were also many disciples who were supporting more than a dozen heavily injured disciples. These seriously injured disciples were the Martial King realm cultivators who had been directly injured by Du Xiaofu not long ago. Bai Yichen was also among them. However, Chao Zhao, Chang Qinghai, and many other disciples whose arms had been cut off by Du Xiaofu did not appear at this time. It was estimated that the most important thing for them to do now was to heal and find a way to reattach their broken arms. For the ancient Heaven sect, there were countless experts. Although they would have to pay a hefty price to reattach their severed arm, it wouldn't be too difficult. Chapter 7:16. However, for Chao Zhao, Chang Qinghai, and the others, the aftereffects and the impact on their future cultivation were extremely serious. Bai Yichen was stunned when he saw that Du Xiaofu was also in the main hall. Bai Yichen's eyes twitched when he saw Du Xiaofu's tattered clothes and bloodied face. He seemed to have understood something. Du Xiaofu, I didn't think that you would dare to come here. Such a vicious person, I won't let you off today. There were some elders who recognized Du Xiaofu. When they saw that Du Xiaofu was also there, their eyes turned red and they shouted angrily, their faces flushed with anger. Elder Hu, you've got the wrong person. Don't think that my junior is easy to bully because he's young. I'm still here. Your disciple Chang Qinghai brought a few thousand disciples to attack my junior. I'm just about to settle this score with you. Yu Wanli shouted. Since his master wasn't around, he naturally had to protect his junior. Elder Hu was a little taken aback by Yu Wanli's shout. Being besieged by more than 5,000 disciples really felt like bullying. Yu Wanli, what you're saying is too serious. Do you think Du Xiaofu will be fine after being besieged by more than 5,000 disciples? Look at how injured they are. Du Xiaofu is vicious and merciless. Another elder stepped forward and said angrily, Bullshit, look at how injured my junior is. Over 5,000 disciples attacked him in front of everyone. Do you still want to deny it? 4 of the top 10 rankers on the gold roll joined hands shamelessly, and you still have the nerve to say that. How dare you complain when you're the bad guys? How shameless. Yu Wanli shouted fearlessly. He almost jumped up and scolded them. Yu, the elder who spoke, was stumped by Yu Wanli's words. He didn't know how to refute. In fact, he knew the truth. However, he also knew that although over 5,000 people had attacked Suimo, there were only over 20 Martial King realm experts. Even so, they had been defeated by Du Xiaofu even though they had joined hands. It was too horrible to look at. It was shameful enough. Sima Taxing frowned. He walked to the center of the main hall and sat down. He said, "All right, with your status in the Manchu, it's beneath your dignity to argue in front of the younger disciples. Let's talk about it slowly. Sect Master, you have to uphold justice. You can't be biased just because Du Xiaofu is the disciple of Elder Gu Qingyang," Elder Hu said. Then, he and the other elders beside him, many elders angrily recounted Du Xiaofu's deeds. Hearing the elders' words, Yu Wanli refuted them loudly. However, there were many juniors in the main hall at this time, so it was not appropriate for him to scold them. On the other hand, Du Xiaofu sat down with a swagger after he followed the group of elders and sat down. He did not say a single word and allowed the group of elders to reprimand him for his crimes. Sima Taxing and Protector Hao, who were sitting at the top of the main hall, listened to the elders talking about how Du Xiaofu had cut off the arms of Chao Zhao and the others, and how Chang Qinghai's right arm had been torn off. They were shocked by the fierceness of it. Then, they looked at Du Xiaofu with fluctuating eyes. Du Xiaofu, do you have anything to say about what the elders have said? After a while, Sima Taxing looked at Du Xiaofu and asked. Then, all eyes fell on Du Xiaofu. Senior brother sect leader, some elders said that I'm a bully. It's obviously Chang Qinghai, Bai Yiqin, Fei Qingming, and the others who instigated it. I have witnesses and material evidence. Some people have already confessed. I've also checked their bodies. There are no traces of Berserk pill or Profound Restoration pill in their bodies. Senior brother sect leader, you can verify it at any time. Du Xiaofang stood up and said to Sima Taxing, as for the last injury, it was because I had no choice. I had just entered the sect and was only a disciple on the bronze list. 4 top 10 experts on the gold list and dozens of Martial King realm experts besieged me. There were also more than 5,000 disciples who were eyeing me covetously. I resisted with all my strength, so I was a little heavy-handed. It was not my fault. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, Elder Hu couldn't bear it anymore and said angrily, "You have a sharp tongue. You are talking nonsense." Elder Hu, which part of my words was not true? Du Xiaofu looked straight at Elder Hu without fear and asked in a deep voice. You. Hearing this, Elder Hu was speechless for a while. It seemed that no matter what, Du Xiaofu was right. Seeing this, Du Xiaofu continued indifferently. They attacked first, and I attacked after. It was purely self-defense. They bullied me with numbers. I am the victim. As his voice faded, Du Xiaofu pointed at Bai Yiqin, who had been standing behind the group of elders, and said, "If you don't believe me, you can ask Bai Yiqin and see if I'm lying. Did they bully me with numbers? Did they come to find trouble with me and besiege me? According to the sect rules, they should be the ones to be punished." Du Xiaofu then raised his head and looked at Sima Taxing. He said respectfully, "Senior brother sect leader, please uphold justice for me." Puff. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's words made Bai Yiqin's blood boil. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood, but he also felt speechless. At this moment, Bai Yiqin finally understood that there was no way he could compete with Du Xiaofu. This Du Xiaofu was too shameless. When you tried to reason with him, he would act like a hooligan. When you tried to act like a hooligan, he would talk with you using his fists. When you talked with him using his fists, he would talk with you using his reasoning. There was no way to argue with him on the same channel. Sect leader, Du Xiaofu is vicious and merciless. He has seriously injured many disciples. Sect leader must uphold justice. I'm afraid the elders will also think that Du Xiaofu must be severely punished, Elder Hu said in a low voice. Sima Taking Xing sat upright. No one could tell what he was thinking from his expression. His glass-like eyes were deep. When he heard Elder Hu's words, there was a slight fluctuation in his eyes that didn't leave a trace. I've learned about this matter, but I'm afraid it will take time to investigate it thoroughly. Wait until the Manchu has investigated it thoroughly, then we can make a conclusion. The most important thing now is to treat the injuries of the injured. After a while, Sima Taxing said to the crowd, Sect leader, Du Xiaofu is vicious and merciless. The evidence is conclusive. If we let Du Xiaofu go today, I'm afraid we won't be able to convince the public. An elder in his 60s came out. His tone was quite tyrannical. It seemed that he had to deal with Du Xiaofu today. I've already said that we need to investigate it thoroughly before we deal with it, Sima Taxing said to the elder. His eyebrows moved slightly. He was not angry, but he was powerful. The elder's eyes trembled slightly, and his aura was suppressed for no reason. Sect leader, you're right. This matter naturally needs time to deal with. At this moment, a voice came into the main hall. The voice was clearly far away, but when the last word fell, it seemed to appear in everyone's ears. Then, in the main hall, a figure appeared silently. The person who came had long black hair combed into a high bun. He looked to be in his 80s, but his figure was strong and healthy. His pair of black eyes were tinged with a faint yellow color, which was enough to make people tremble for no reason. As this person appeared in the main hall, the entire space seemed to have solidified, and the airflow stopped fluctuating. This person is so strong. He doesn't seem to be weaker than Master Gu Qingyang. Du Xiaofu was secretly shocked. To be able to control the flow of spatial energy with his surrounding strength without making a sound, causing the surrounding spatial airflow to fluctuate with his breathing, was equivalent to being able to control this space. How powerful was such strength? Greetings, Martial Uncle Tianlu. Seeing this person coming, Sima Taxing's eyes moved slightly. Yuan Li also frowned slightly. He immediately stood up and saluted respectfully. Greetings, Elder Tianlu. When Elder Hu and the others saw this, they immediately became happy. Martial Uncle, why are you here today? Please take a seat. Sima Taxing sat down and said to the old man, You're the sect leader. You should sit. I'll leave now. It won't be long. Elder Tianlu's eyes swept over Du Xiaofu, intentionally or unintentionally. Then, he said to Sima Taxing, I already know what you're discussing. Since the Manchu needs time to investigate, but according to the rules of the Manchu, you need to be strictly guarded during the investigation. How about this? You don't need to argue. I'll take Du Xiaofu away. According to the rules of the Manchu, put him in the black prison first. I happen to be free, so I can guard him personally. When the reason is investigated, the Manchu will deal with him at its discretion. As Elder Tianlu's voice fell, Sima Taxing and Yuan Li's faces suddenly changed. However, Elder Hu and the others secretly smiled. Martial Uncle Tianlu, you don't have to go to the black prison, right? Yuan Li's eyes were extremely solemn. The black prison was definitely not a good place. Martial Uncle, we don't dare to trouble you with such a trivial matter. Just leave it to us. Sima Taxing immediately said, Humph, Du Xiaofu is so cruel to his fellow disciple. No matter what the reason is, putting him in the black prison first is already a light punishment. There's no need to say more. Elder Tianlu said in a deep voice. As his voice fell, he looked at Du Xiaofu and said indifferently, You're Du Xiaofu, right? Do you want to come with me, or do you want me to take you away? An invisible pressure spread out from the old man's body. The space froze. A great suppressive force suddenly spread out from all directions and crushed towards Du Xiaofu. Boom. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's figure suddenly trembled. The suppressive force of the 5 elements was so terrifying that it was like Mount Tai pressing down on him. I won't tell you that I couldn't sleep until now. I got up and finished another chapter. I finished the chapter in the middle of the night. If I wake up early at night, I'll have to pay my debts. If I oversleep, I can only update it tomorrow. I'll cry and count sheep in bed. Chapter 717. Du Xiaofu's body trembled under the frightening suppressive force. The profound qi within his body surged out. A domineering aura that originated from the golden-winged Great Peng secretly surged and resisted the invisible suppressive force. Elder Tianlu's eyes looked at Du Xiaofu. He seemed to have sensed something. Only then did a ripple appear in his eyes. There seemed to be some surprise on his face. I'll go with you. Du Xiaofu lifted his head and looked at Elder Tianlu as he spoke. All right, if that's the case, then come with me. Elder Tianlu said faintly. A faint yellow glow fluctuated in Heise's eyes. Little Junior, Black Prison is not an ordinary place. There will be a lot of suffering inside. Yu Wanli's expression was grave. He was well aware of what kind of place Black Prison was. Only the disciples of the Manchu who had committed a grave mistake would be sent to Black Prison. It's all right. I believe that the Manchu will investigate thoroughly. I have done nothing wrong. There is no need to worry. A smile flashed across Du Xiaofu's pale face. However, this smile made his blood-stained face appear a lot crueler. Sima taking looked at Du Xiaofu. He wanted to say something but hesitated. His glass-like eyes were deep. After which, he said to Du Xiaofu, I will investigate thoroughly as soon as possible. Let's go. You will stay in Black Prison until the investigation is completed. Elder Tianlu's body had some light fluctuations after he finished speaking. In the next instant, he had already appeared at the entrance of the large hall. Third Senior, I will go now. There is no need to worry. As soon as Du Xiaofu finished speaking, he followed Elder Tianlu and left. Humph. Elder Hu and the rest sneered as they looked at Du Xiaofu's back. They were well aware of what kind of place Black Prison was. No one would have a good ending if they entered it. Yu Wanli stayed in the large hall for a while. His expression sunk. After which, he bid farewell to Sima taking Xing and hurriedly left. Elder Hu and the rest said a few words that Du Xiaofu must be severely punished. After which, they also bid farewell to Sima taking Xing and left. Sect Master, what should we do now? Watching the crowd leave, Protector Hao frowned and looked at Sima taking. Sima taxing Xing frowned slightly and said, they have planned this for a long time, but they didn't expect that even Marshal Uncle Tianlu would come out. It seems that the situation is more serious than we thought. Master was right. It is not easy to be a sect master. That brat Du Xiaofu is really ruthless. This time, he made Xiao Zhao and the others suffer a lot. Protector Hao said to Sima taxing. Those people took the opportunity to invite Elder Heavenly Deer. It seems that they will not give up easily. I have said that once they go out, Xiao Zhao, Chongqing Hai and the others will be eaten up by Du Xiaofu. They are domesticated tigers, while Du Xiaofu is a wild wolf from outside. He is a strong dragon. Xiao Zhao and the others are not enough to play with. Sima taxing Xing whispered. Du Xiaofu was put into the Black Prison. That is a place of great danger. For so many years, only 1 out of 100 disciples who have been put into the Black Prison can survive. Protector Hao is worried and puzzled. Du Xiaofu actually chose to go in with Elder Heavenly Deer. It surprised me. He doesn't look like such an honest person. Do you really think he went in without doing anything? Sima taxing Xing smiled bitterly. He took a deep breath and said, he knows that Elder Heavenly Deer is here today, so he has to go. He is enduring and waiting. I hope that this kid will not blame me, the sect master. I also hope that he will be fine. I believe that with his abnormal strength, he will be fine even if he withstands for a few days. The cliffs and peaks towered into the clouds, like a dragon raising its head. 5 towering peaks stood opposite each other like a cage. Clouds and mist lingered in the sky, while a black mist faintly spread from the bottomless cliffs below. It made the vision in this part of the world dim. This was a mysterious place. Anyone who approached it would feel a chill in their hearts. Only a small number of disciples in the ancient Heaven sect knew about this place. The Black Prison was a prison within the ancient Heaven sect. Only disciples who had committed grave crimes and wanted by the ancient Heaven sect had the opportunity to enter the Black Prison. Of course, no one would enter the Black Prison willingly. It was not a place for people to stay. It was rumored that no matter how strong a person was, the outcome would be the same once they entered the Black Prison. There were restrictions in the Black Prison. The stronger one was, the greater the backlash. It was rumored that out of 100 people who entered the Black Prison, it was already good enough if one person was lucky enough to walk out alive. Above the cliffs, the vision was a little dim. Du Xiaofu followed Elder Tianlu here. An inexplicable aura came from the bottomless abyss below the cliffs, making Du Xiaofu's hair stand on end. Below is the Black Prison. Before the Manchu investigates your punishment, you should stay in the black prison and reflect on yourself. If you can't survive the black prison, it can only be said that your life is over. Elder Tianlu turned around and said to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu did not say anything. He looked at Elder Tianlu in front of him with an unusually calm gaze. The calmness in Du Xiaofu's eyes even made Elder Tianlu experience an indescribable feeling. It was an indescribable feeling, but it was extremely uncomfortable. It was like the cub of a ferocious beast that had been patiently waiting. It made Elder Tianlu shiver for no reason. Du Xiaofu strode forward and arrived at the edge of the cliffs. He stared at the gloomy cliffs below, where black mist vaguely permeated the air. Suddenly, he looked back at Elder Tianlu and asked, "May I ask, Elder Tianlu, where did this disciple go wrong?" Elder Tianlu's eyes flickered with yellow light when he heard that. As if he was rather surprised, he said, "You shouldn't have been so vicious to your fellow disciple. You should have been punished. Do you not accept that?" "Accept? He? Du Xiaofu's pale face smiled slightly when he heard that. He asked Elder Tianlu, "May I ask again? May I ask if Elder Tianlu has entered the so-called black prison below?" "The black prison exists for prisoners. Of course I haven't entered it." Elder Tianlu was doubtful, but he still answered Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu still had a smile on his face. He took out a king-grade Xian Yuan pill from his chinkuan bag and stuffed it into his mouth. Then, he jumped down the cliff. Whoosh! As Du Xiaofu leaped down, ripples appeared in the black mist. The solid space rippled and a bone-black ripple immediately swallowed Du Xiaofu. Elder Tianlu stood on the precipice. His eyes were a little dazed as he looked at Du Xiaofu's smiling expression. He was unable to see through that expression. Yu Wanli practically charged into the courtyard on Heaven's Eye Peak. He quickly entered his room and set up a barrier. He took out a jade slip from his chinkuan bag. Talisman inscriptions flickered on the jade slip. "Master, quickly return to the Manchu. Junior brother has been imprisoned in the black prison." As his voice fell, Yu Wanli formed a few hand seals. Several hand seals turned into dazzling talisman inscriptions and swept into the jade slip. Caw-caw. The jade slip shone brightly. Then, it began to crack and shatter. Finally, it turned into powder and dissipated. In the black space, the vision was dim. Black mist fluctuated, and the surroundings were steep cliffs. It was like a huge bottomless pit. Many white skeletons could be seen on the jagged cliffs. They gave off a phosphorescent luster and were eerie. Whoosh! Inside the bottomless pit, a terrifying invisible storm swept across, whistling non-stop. No one knew where this invisible storm came from. It seemed to have appeared out of thin air. Du Xiaofu's body continued to fall. In this space, one could not control his body. His strength was directly affected, and he could only let himself fall. The invisible storm in the space caused the black mist to fluctuate violently. In that terrifying storm, an extremely strange cold wind surged into the body. It seemed to be able to cut off a person's flesh and blood like a sharp blade. The cold wind penetrated deep into the bone marrow. It could spread through the bones, muscles, and meridians of the body. Intense pain could be felt from the cells. It was impossible to resist. Du Xiaofu endured the pain that penetrated deep into his skin and muscles. He could not even make a sound. His cultivation and strength would also be greatly affected. The more he tried to resist, the greater the impact he would receive. Bang! After an unknown period of time, Du Xiaofu finally fell to the ground. He could not help but fall on a protruding rock on the cliff. Two phosphorescent white skeletons were scattered on the ground. Du Xiaofu landed on the ground and took the opportunity to retreat. Only then did he feel that the terrifying cold wind had dissipated. He then looked around and realized that he was in a spacious karst cave. Kacha! There was a cracking sound under his feet. Du Xiaofu looked down and realized that there were a few scattered white bones under his feet. For some reason, the skeletons were extremely fragile. They turned into white powder with a single step. Sorry. Du Xiaofu put his palms together and bowed to the skeletons. Then, Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at the ground in the cave. There were still many scattered white skeletons. The walls of the cave were black, and the sound of wind was echoing in the cave. What a terrifying cold wind! Du Xiaofu looked around. The strange cold wind that permeated his body was still able to penetrate through every orifice. If it weren't for the almost abnormal defensive power on his body, Du Xiaofu felt that his current situation wouldn't be as simple as it was now. But even if his original body was not weak, the current situation was not optimistic. Gritting his teeth, Du Xiaofu formed a hand seal. Then, a stream of light shot out from between his eyebrows and turned into a small pagoda. It was the small pagoda that Zhen Qingchun had been residing in the ancient, desolate space. Walala! The runes on the small pagoda flickered. Then, a smoke-like light shot out and turned into Zhen Qingchun's illusory body. Chapter 7:18. Why are you looking for me? Is it because Zhen Qingchun appeared and stared at Du Xiaofu with his triangular eyes? Before he could finish his sentence, his expression suddenly changed. He turned around and looked at the black fog outside the karst cave. His eyes flickered and his hands moved slightly. Strange runes appeared in the air around him. Black Hell Shield. This is actually Black Hell Shield. Zhen Qingchun was shocked. He seemed to have discovered something surprising. Brother Qingchun, what is Black Hell Shield? It is extremely terrifying and difficult to resist. Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly at Zhen Qingchun. The Black Hell Shield is not an ordinary thing. However, the Black Hell Shield here is still very weak compared to the real Black Hell Shield. However, it is still enough to kill ordinary cultivators. In addition, this place is also sealed by someone relying on the Black Hell Shield. This is not a good place. Zhen Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and asked, "Why are you here? How did you get involved with the Black Hell Shield?" Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly and told his brother Zhen Qingchun the rough situation. "Sai, it seems like the ancient heaven sect is not very harmonious. The big sects all have a golden exterior. However, you became a breakthrough point for them to compete with each other. You can be considered as being involved in some kind of whirlpool." Zhen Qingchun sighed softly. Then, he asked Du Xiaofu, "What do you plan to do now?" "I have no plans." Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Looks like it won't be easy for you to get out. Looking at the layout of this place, it's quite extraordinary. It relies on the black fiendish astral chi to create an extremely ingenious layout. However, it's a bit overkill to use the black fiendish astral chi to create a cage. If this black fiendish astral chi could be used to create an indestructible barrier for the ancient heaven sect." Zhen Qingchun muttered softly. Then, he shook his head and said, "Perhaps the ancient heaven sect does not have a talisman master that can do this. I am afraid that even at my peak, I would not be able to do this. However, the ancient heaven sect has this Black Hell Shield. It seems like this place is very special. This Black Hell Shield is impossible to resist. Brother Qingchun, are you not afraid?" Du Xiaofu was puzzled. Zhen Qingchun's soul spirit did not seem to be affected by the Black Hell Shield. The Black Evil Gang Chi has a greater effect on the body of the primordial spirit. However, my primordial spirit is very special. It is different from the primordial spirit of ordinary people. Otherwise, I would not have been able to survive until now. Therefore, I am fine in the Black Evil Gang Chi," Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu, seeming to be extremely complacent. Besides him, there probably weren't many people in this world that were able to withstand the black fiendish astral chi without suffering any damage. It would not take long for the soul spirit of an ordinary soul spirit to be completely destroyed in the Black Hell Shield. Is there any way to resist the Black Hell Shield? Du Xiaofu could not help but stare at Zhen Qingchun. The old man could resist the strange Black Hell Shield, but it was difficult for him to resist it. Not many people are able to resist the Black Fiend Astral Chi. Most people would give up on this idea. However, you do have a way. Zhen Qingchun smiled. What is it? Du Xiaofu suddenly saw a glimmer of hope. Your desolate ancient space is not an ordinary object. After hiding in it, the Black Hell Shield will not be able to enter at all. Naturally, you will be fine. Zhen Qingchun frowned slightly and said, however, this place is not very safe. If you use the desolate ancient space, it will be very easy for the ancient heaven sect to find out. At that time, there will be a lot of trouble. This object is too extraordinary. Don't tell me the ancient heaven sect will not be tempted. Du Xiaofu understood. Then, his face turned serious. He asked Jin Qingchun, "Is there any other way?" "Of course there is a way. It is with you." Jin Qingchun smiled and said, "However, this method will probably make you suffer a lot. However, if you can persevere, it will be a great opportunity for you." "What should I do?" Du Xiaofu looked puzzled and asked Jin Qingchun. "The golden-winged rock is the most masculine and masculine. The black hell shield is the most masculine and masculine. It is said that in the golden-winged rock race, there are golden-winged rocks who seek the most een and cold objects in the world to forge their bodies. However, only the top golden-winged rocks can succeed. Without yang, there is no een and no een. Yin and yang are the Tao of heaven and earth, the outline of all things, the parents of change, the origin of life and death, and the abode of the gods." Jin Qingchun looked at Du Xiaofu and said seriously, "You practice the golden-winged rock cultivation method, which is the most masculine and masculine. Although the black hell shield is not the most een and cold object, the black hell shield here is still some distance away from the real black hell shield. However, it is just right for your current strength. Otherwise, you would not have the fortune to enjoy it. However, I am afraid that this suffering is not ordinary. Moreover, this is only a legend. I don't know whether it is real or not." "The most een and cold to forge one's body," Du Xiaofu murmured. "In this case, if he could obtain the black hell shield to forge his body, he would gain great benefits." "You must be careful now." Suddenly, Zheng Xingchuan's voice rang out. He looked at the black fog in front of him that had intensified at some point and said, "This place is not a place to hide. Instead, it is a place of great danger. The seal here is changing. When the time comes, the black hell shield will wreak havoc in this cave." Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's eyes flickered. No wonder there were so many white skeletons in this cave. Some people, like him, had probably treated this place as a safe place, but in the end, only white bones were left. Huff huff, the black fog rippled and whizzed over. At the same time, in the entire bottomless space, the terrifying black fog rippled violently, accompanied by a real storm, like boiling steam. Rumble. At this moment, the entire space trembled. Suddenly, the terrifying black hell shield intensified. Then, from outside the cave, an overwhelming amount of black hell shield surged into the cave, like a wave sweeping over a submerged reef, filling the karst cave. The terrifying black fog formed a vortex in the cave, enveloping Du Xiaofu. The terrifying black hell shield surged out from the black fog. Compared to the black hell shield that Du Xiaofu had encountered before, this one was many times stronger. The vortex of black hell shield spun, like countless sharp blades scraping the surface of his body. When they entered his body, they could cut off his flesh and blood. There was no way to resist. Be careful. If you can't do it, you can enter the desolate ancient space first. The black hell shield and the seal have changed. Zheng Qingchun said loudly, reminding Du Xiaofeng. The vortex of black hell shield in the cave seemed to be able to devour sound. "Come on, forge my body." Du Xiaofu clenched his teeth. If he could absorb the black hell shield to forge his body, it would be an opportunity for him to become stronger. Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged in the terrifying black hell shield and forcefully activated the golden rock cultivation technique. Qi, a golden glow gushed out, causing an indescribable intense pain in his body. However, when the golden glow enveloped his entire body, Du Xiaofu discovered that the effect of the Black Fiend constellation on him was indeed significantly reduced. Walala! Du Xiaofu sat cross-legged in the vortex, activating the golden rock cultivation technique and absorbing the black hell shield to forge his body. The vortex of black hell shield raged and immediately tore Du Xiaofu's purple robe away. The purple strip of cloth on Du Xiaofu's purple gold celestial palace was also directly blown away by the black hell shield, revealing the silent purple gold celestial palace. Under the naked body, Du Xiaofu's muscles and bones could be seen on the surface of his body. They were wrapped in golden talisman engravings and released a dazzling golden light. The black hell shield was the strongest in the Yin. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to avoid it. However, it was rare for the Golden Rock clan to encounter it. It could forge the rock body and nourish the muscles and bones. Walala! In the terrifying black hell shield, Du Xiaofu seemed to be wrapped in black flames and burned. His body looked like it was about to be torn to pieces. Boy, it hurts, right? You must hold on and maintain your true spirit. After 1,000 tempering, you will naturally be able to strengthen yourself. Zhang Qingchuan's illusory primordial spirit appeared in the black hell shield vortex, and his voice echoed in Du Xiaofu's ears. Forge my body internally and externally. Du Xiaofu shouted loudly. His hand seals condensed, before he suddenly opened his mouth and sucked. A golden glow erupted from his mouth, as a suction force gushed out, directly sucking the terrifying black fiend astral chi into his mouth. Walala! In an instant, the black hell shield surged and was drawn toward Du Xiaofu's mouth. Swallowing the black fiend astral energy to refine one's body was extremely terrifying and dangerous. Even a true golden-winged great Peng would not dare to do so. However, Du Xiaofu was like a newborn calf that was not afraid of a tiger. He actually did it. Ouch! In the black hell shield, Du Xiaofu screamed miserably. The pain was unbearable. It was as if countless sharp blades were rotating inside and outside his body, penetrating deep into his cells and bones. Walala! Du Xiaofu grimaced in pain. He could feel blood seeping out of his body. His skin began to crack, and pale golden blood seeped out. It was as if his flesh and blood were about to be scraped away and turned into white bones. However, Du Xiaofu's flesh and blood had not been completely scraped away. Under the golden rocks technique, he resisted, absorbed, and refined the black fiend astral energy. At this time, Du Xiaofu's skin was cracking and pale golden blood flowed out. However, golden talisman patterns gushed out of the cracked skin and resisted the further erosion of the black hell shield. Faintly, the cracked skin began to heal and became even more crystal clear and strong. However, it cracked again, healed again, and improved again. This cycle began. This guy is really ferocious. Jin Qingchun was surprised and a look of shock flashed across his eyes. It was said that only the top golden rock could forge their body in this way, but this guy really did it.